From Pullman, Washington, welcome to Fox College Football, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. It's the 111th Apple Cup with a trip to the Pac-12 championship game up for grabs. Number 16, Washington. Number 8, Washington State. Utah's already clinched the South. The winner of this one moves on to take the Utes on in Santa Clara on Friday night. A Washington State team that was picked to finish 5th in the North didn't debut in the polls until mid-October. Now has an opportunity at a school record 11th win tonight. And much bigger than that, they've got an opportunity at a Pac-12 championship, maybe the playoff, the Rose Bowl. That's ahead of them. Joe Davis, Brady Quinn, Bruce Feldman joins us in a moment. Here's the thing, though. They've had opportunities before. This is the 3rd season in a row where a win over the Huskies would mean a trip to the Pac-12 championship. 2 years ago, they get beat 45-17. Last year, 41-14. Why do the Cougs think this year's different?
Their quarterback, their Heisman candidate quarterback, Gardner Minshew, the transfer from ECU, he's been nothing short of amazing this year. When you think about the undertaking, only being here for half a year, and he's now all of a sudden the most productive quarterback in college football. He has mastered this offense, the air raid offense under head coach Mike Leach. And I think the thing I appreciate about him the most are the 3 things that differentiates him from every other passer in the country. And it all starts with his ability to anticipate. He throws wide receivers open better than any other quarterback in the country. You see the touchdown pass here to Patton. And then it's really his pocket awareness. They're only rushing 3. He knows he can sit in the pocket. He's got time. He has a good base, and he waits for the wide receiver to get into the window in the zone coverage. And then finally, the golden rule. Take what the defense gives you. Nothing there on the front side of his read. He works all the way back across to his 5th progression. Finds the running back. That's a big part of this offense. He's been so good this year operating it with such a short amount of time.
Face a Washington team tonight that came into the season ranked number 6, legitimate playoff aspirations. They're not going to get there, but still a chance at going to the Rose Bowl behind their senior quarterback, Jake Browning.
Yeah, one of the most prolific passers in Pac-12 history. He's almost an afterthought in this matchup because of how the season's gone, but he's got one of the more storied careers when you look at what he's been able to do. One of the most productive and successful quarterbacks. He should be celebrated, and he's trying to make it a clean sweep in the Apple Cup, the first Washington quarterback to potentially do that.
Brady, as the rain turns to snow with the temperature in the high 30s, how do you see this impacting tonight?
Well, last week, Gardner Minshew threw 7 touchdown passes when it was 29 degrees versus Arizona here in Pullman, so I don't think it's going to impact him too much.
Should be fun, quite a scene. We take you to break with our Progressive Insurance game countdown. It's the Apple Cup. It's Washington and Washington State coming up next on Fox. Back on Fox College Football, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. And a series that goes back to 1900 when the teams played to a 5-5 tie in Seattle. It is the Apple Cup, with Washington having won 5 in a row and 8 of the last 9 against their in-state rivals. Down in the snow tonight is Bruce Feldman.
Joe, Washington has beaten Washington State by an average of 27 points per game since Chris Peterson has been here. But Mike Leach will never talk about that. He doesn't talk about this year. He doesn't talk about last year. He said every year we got a different team, they got a different team. What's really different about these Cougs, you talk to their coaching staff, they said, we are a different team because everybody in the locker room believes we're different because we have Gardner Minshew. He has made us different. They said he is so locked in and so confident and so focused. A few minutes ago, Mike Leach told me he's probably the best leader of a quarterback I've ever been around.
And they're going to get an opportunity to see him right away. Washington State wins the toss and receives. Off we go from Pullman with the touchback. And if you just happen to be tuning in to a Washington State game for the first time, meet Gardner Minshew out of Brandon, Mississippi. Started his college career as a walk-on at Troy, left after a year to go to Northwest Mississippi Junior College and won a national title there. Still, though, no Power 5 offers, so he spent the next 2 seasons at East Carolina, in and out of the starting role. decided to transfer this spring and initially planned to go to Alabama, where he would have been the third stringer and turned into a graduate assistant the next year, when Mike Leach called an easy decision for him to come here to Pullman. He leads the top passing offense in the country, better than 40 points per game. It is incomplete, nearly intercepted by Taylor Rapp on the game's first play.
And this has been the issue in this series for the past few years. Turnovers for Washington State, and the Washington defense being able to capitalize on this. Gardner Minshew, as he drops back, this is a timing route. He throws it on time, but he doesn't see Taylor Rapp sitting there waiting for it.
So on 2nd and 10, they go to the ground for the first time, and it's James Williams into the teeth of the defense. 3rd down coming up.
As you look at the breakdown for Gardner Minshew, one of the things you have to appreciate about him is he's decisive. When he makes up his mind where he's going with the football, he aligns his body, he gets his eyes where they need to be, and he delivers a strike, and he's balanced. And it's not just being balanced in the pocket with his throwing motion, it's balancing everything that Mike Leach puts on their quarterback in this system, everything that's come along with all the hype now as he's a Heisman candidate, and this team has really grown out around him. He's able to balance and handle it all.
Looking at a 3rd down and 5 on the first possession for the Cougars. Travell Harris in motion. Washington rushes only 3, so Minshew with time, and he delivers incomplete off of the hands of Kyle Sweet, broken up by Elijah Molden. And the Pac-12's top offense goes 3 and out to start.
Talk to defensive coordinator Jimmy Lake, co-defensive coordinator, I should say, as Pete Kwiatkowski is also part of that group. And then they've had a lot of success versus Mike Leach and this air raid offense. And one of the things he said to me before the game was, we're not going to be able to rush. That's what they want you to do. We'd like to rush 3, drop back into coverage, have eyes on Minshew, and make sure we have good breaks on the football.
As good as the passing attacks have been for Washington State through the years, the last 5 Apple Cups, 7 touchdown passes to 12 interceptions. Dragicevic hits it off the side of his foot. Out of bounds at the 35, and we get our first look at Washington's offense led by Jake Browning, who's trying to go 4-0 in Apple Cups.
And he's done a good job in these matchups versus Washington State, and it's not easy. When you look at the Washington State defense and really what they task you with, trying to differentiate what type of front they're going to have. They do a good job of disguising coverage. The biggest thing I think he's done, and really he's going to have to do tonight, considering the weather, taking care of the football. Only 1 interception in the 3 previous games in this series.
They work out of the eye in the first play. Myles Gaskin, who's been a huge part of Washington's success over the last few years, especially in this series. 380 yards and 7 touchdowns in his 3 games against Washington State, and that includes those numbers last year in Seattle.
He's been Mr. Reliable, especially in this series, and I suspect he's going to get a lot of touches in tonight's game because of the weather, but also because they've been effective and the size advantage Washington has on the Washington State defense.
He leaves after 1 play, replaced by Sean McGrew. Jake Browning's first throw hits Ty Jones, slips a tackle and gets a first down to midfield.
So you look at a nice throw and timing route really with Jake Browning. Washington State plays some soft coverage on the outside. That's going to be there for him throughout the course of the game. One of the biggest keys, though, is their ability to be able to run the football versus this Washington State defense. We talked about the size advantage Washington has. Look for the multiple tight end sets throughout the course of the game. You're looking at 3 tight ends in the game right now.
Gaskin back in. He's got it again. Surge from that offensive line, escorting him for a gain of 6. Per man, about 60 pounds of advantage for the Washington offensive line.
Yeah, and the thing with Washington State is they move their defensive line so much up front, meaning they do it before the snap, so they make you have to deal with communicating up front, then they do it after the snap. So how you counter that if you're Washington is you just do a bunch of zone blocking because you don't know where these guys are going to be at, and you use that size to your advantage, and then the tight ends to get to the edge and get those big running plays on the outside.
Last year, 328 rushing yards for Washington in that blowout win in Seattle. Cougars show pressure on 2nd down with the play clock winding down. They barely get it off. It's Gaskin with a first down. Myles Gaskin with an opportunity tonight to become the first running back in Pac-12 history with 4 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons.
Talked about the pressure look and Jake Browning checking to the run there. Sometimes people think you got to check to the pass. Not so much. A lot of times you can find creases when defenses bring pressure.
Got a tight end in Cade Otton lined up as a fullback, leading the way for another Gaskin run, who's got room off the left side. Stays on his feet, stumbling to the 26, and it's 2nd and short.
And if I'm Washington, I do this all game long. I continue to attack the edges. That's just a gap scheme. What they're trying to do is get Myles Gaskin to the outside when he's going to be working against smaller players, cornerbacks, safeties. It's been the MO of the Washington offense every single time they've taken on this Cougar defense.
Salvon Ahmed, their best big play threat at running back, in for the first time on 2nd and 3.
The Washington State defense all up around the line of scrimmage. There might be some opportunities on the outside to take a shot.
And set straight downhill, and Ahmed's first run goes for close to a first down with Skylar Thomas and Jahad Woods combining in the tackle, and you hear the whistle blowing that dead before Peyton Pelluer took off with it. It is enough for a Washington first down.
Jahad Woods in on that tackle. He was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week last week. Quite the remarkable performance. 11 tackles, forced fumble, fumble recovery.
You hear the reaction from the crowd as they show the replay, and the ball clearly was out, but it came after forward progress was ruled to have been stopped, and that's not reviewable. Gaskin back in there. Already his 5th carry, not much room this time. It's the 6th-year senior Peyton Pelluer making the tackle. A Washington State record 53rd career game for him tonight.
He's really been the heartbeat of the Washington State defense. So experienced. But when you look at him too, he's always on the attack. He's down around the line of scrimmage. As soon as one of these offensive line for Washington pulls, he's filling that gap trying to make a play.
Don't see a lot of this. Empty set for Washington. And a flag.
False start. Offense number 76. 5-yard penalty. Replay 2nd down.
So left guard Luke Wattenberg.
You know, it may not be the biggest stadium, but it sure is loud. The student section for Washington State has been here probably an hour before the game even started. Dealing with the rain, dealing with the cold weather. They know what's on the line.
2nd smallest Power 5 stadium in the country. They've helped Washington State win 13 in a row here. 2nd down and long. Browning setting up a screen. Andre Bocelli gets a couple of blocks into the 21, where it'll be 3rd down. Jahad Woods, his 2nd tackle.
This is the down and distance where Jake Browning has really excelled. On 3rd down in particular this year. He's handled the pressure well. He's completing 60% of his passes for 7 touchdowns. One of the better quarterbacks in the Pac-12 this year in handling this situation.
They run it on 3rd and 8. Gaskin needs the 13, slips a tackle to get it. And what a message sent there by Washington. Running the football for a first down on 3rd and 8.
Well, that's been the difference. It's really the physicality of Washington State. And they're just running single back power. You can see Luke Wattenberg, the left guard, just got called for the false start. Makes up for it, helping to seal off on Peyton Pelluer, allowing Gaskin to get to the 2nd level. Gaskin's got to be one of the most underrated running backs in college football. I mean, he's the entire package. The only knock against him is he's 5'10", 190 pounds.
Already within a yard of 5,000 for his career now. He'll have a chance to crack 5,000 here. He might need another shot. No gain this time as Jalen Thompson comes up from his safety spot to stop him for no gain.
He's going to get another opportunity. Sometimes they get down in this area of the field. Sometimes they'll go wildcat with him. He'll be at that quarterback position, but the guy to keep an eye on when they do want to throw the football is Ty Jones. He's got an extreme size advantage at 6'4", 209 pounds. He's got 5 touchdowns in the red zone this year.
Lined up to the top of the screen. On 2nd and 10, Browning well protected. Zips one into the end zone, picked off by Skylar Thomas. Washington State stands up, backed into its own end, intercepting Jake Browning. First time in his storied career he's been picked off in the red zone.
The second interception of the season for Skylar Thomas. Watch him right here. He's going to have vision the whole way, seeing it. And if I know that tendency of Ty Jones, you better believe Tracy Claeys, the defensive coordinator for Washington State, knows it too. And they know they're going to be targeting him early on. Big time play by the defense for the Cougars.
It's one of the more incredible numbers in college football right now, isn't it? He's still, even with the one.
He's been so good, I mean, throughout his career. He's one of the guys that's more underappreciated just for his career and what he's accomplished.
37 wins, more than any quarterback in Pac-12 history. Flag flies as Levi Onwuzurike jumps off sides. Stephen Strimling, head referee tonight.
Number 95 of the defense in the neutral zone, causing the offense to move. 5-yard penalty, remains first down.
Levi Onwuzurike might have one of the faster get-offs on the snap of the football, and obviously Washington State's noticed that, and he has been drawn off sides a number of times, so keep an eye on that. Since Washington State's at home, they're going to be able to use a mixture of snap counts to keep mouse heels.
Washington, the least penalized team in the Pac-12, called for a couple already tonight. Owen makes it 1st and 5. The freshman Max Borghi swings out. Minshew looked his direction, but it was taken away, so he takes off, which he does well, getting 7 yards and a Cougar first down.
You want to talk about the difference between what Gardner Minshew has brought to this offense? It's that. It's his ability to pick up first downs with his legs. He's not the most athletic, but he's opportunistic. When he's there, he buys time, and he's able to get enough to pick up a few first downs. And you only have to do that once or twice throughout the course of a game to all of a sudden put more pressure on that defense.
Keep them honest, just establish the threat. First down from the 31. Washington shows pressure. And Borghi's first carry goes for a short gain. And this matchup here, Brady, of strength against strength, top scoring offense in the Pac-12 against what is, for the 4th year in a row, the best defense in the conference.
Yeah, I think the only thing lacking for Washington this year, and something that's been different in years past, is their lack of pressure. Only 17 sacks on the season. They're going up against an offensive line for Washington State that's only given up 9 the entire year. Maybe the best pass protection offensive line in the country.
On 2nd down and 8, they'll look to protect Minshew. They'll dump it off for Borghi, trying to run away from Burke Irvin, and does. He's got a first down into Washington territory on a gain of 21.
Well, there's not another team that has their running backs targeted as much in the passing game than Washington State. James Williams is 2nd in the country, and Max Borghi, he's not too far behind him. The true freshman out of Arvada, Colorado. Drawing some comparisons back in the Denver area to one Christian McCaffrey. Both worked with the same trainer. Coming up in high school, Lauren Landau does a great job.
From the 45-yard line, play action. Minshew gets through his progression. Here's Calvin Jackson coming off a career game where the first-year JUCO transfer had 2 touchdowns as part of that 69-28 rout against Arizona.
Probably most famous for his time on Last Chance U. But all these wide receivers for Washington State have ability. They rotate them all. And it's what makes this offense so hard to stop. Their tendency is to pass, but they don't have a tendency necessarily to go to one particular player.
2nd and short. Minshew again facing a 3-man rush. Here's Williams out of the backfield, sidestepping a defender. First down and more to the 20. JoJo McIntosh pushed him out after a gain of 19.
Well, he did as good of a job of anyone of making the first guy miss. We talked about it. Gardner Minshew, when nothing else is there downfield, he knows to get to his outlet. James Williams, Max Borghi, the running backs, you get them out in space, they're going to make the first guy miss, and they're physical with the football.
Cougars on the move with a first down to the 21. Minshew quickly throws low. Kyle Sweet, the team captain on his senior night, has his first catch.
At some point, Washington's going to have to go to man coverage because Gardner Minshew is surgical right now, finding the tough spots or the soft spots in the zone coverage. Let's take another look to see if he caught it. That looks like it hit the ground before he necessarily had possession of it.
And they do blow it dead before another snap.
The ruling on the field of the previous play of a catch is under further review.
I don't know that Kyle Sweet was able to get his hands underneath to get possession before the nose of the ball hits the ground.
And while they take a look at this upstairs, we'll take a break. Back to the Apple Cup after this. Fox College Football is sponsored by Buick. Turn Black Friday into Buick Friday with a fresh new lineup that's full of surprises. And by State Farm, here to help life go right. The call stands on Kyle Sweet's 8-yard catch. So out of the timeout, 2nd and 2.
A lot of that probably had to do with the fact that that was the call on the field. And it may be based on the view that we had was going to be hard to overturn. Nothing definitive.
Minshew making a change. Williams flips sides. Wide snap. He's able to haul it in and burrow ahead. Getting back to the line of scrimmage where Greg Gaines and Joe Tryon were waiting for him, setting up a 3rd and short.
There's been no better quarterback in the Pac-12 this year than Gardner Minshew, completing almost 70% of his passes, 25 touchdowns. It's been incredible, and you can see just the amount of communication that goes on between the sideline and Gardner Minshew and everything that's on his plate. He's communicating the protection to the offensive lineman, signaling out the routes, and
Illegal substitution on the offense. Number 17 and number 5 left the field and then re-entered without staying out for a down. 5-yard penalty, 3rd down.
On this charm season for Mike Leach's team, that's been one of the issues. They're the 3rd most penalized team in the conference.
And the tough part there was they stayed at the football. I think there's a lot of communication going back and forth of who they wanted in, what personnel grouping. Minshew was obviously inundated with having to communicate the rest of the call while those guys were still coming in.
So they've gone from a 2nd and 2 to a 3rd and 7. You talk about Minshew being the best passer in the conference this year. It's like in every category, under pressure, well protected, throwing deep, and on 3rd down. Juggles the snap, brings it in, scans the field with all day to throw, keeping his eyes downfield, now takes off and slides. He'll be spotted where the slide began, which is a touch short. It'll be 4th and less than 1.
And this is an area that I would not be shocked at all if Mike Leach didn't go for. They're one of the better 4th down teams in the country. 2nd in the Pac-12 converting. Top 15 in the country.
And he goes for it as much as anybody.
And clearly you can see Mike Leach is asking about the spot. We dealt with this last week. Kind of subjective as to when the runner is starting his slide and where the ball should be spotted. Let's take another look.
That's the right call.
It's a little more definitive there as far as when he began to slide.
They're going to use a timeout in front of this 4th and 1. And it looks like as this first quarter's winding down, the rain is officially turned to snow in the 111th Apple Cup with a trip to the Pac-12 championship up for grabs. During that timeout, Mike Leach challenged the spot on the field. The call is confirmed, and so they lose their timeout and lose their challenge for the game.
And again, it's when he begins his slide and where the ball is at, that is where the ball will be down, and looked pretty definitive to us as to when Minshew started his slide and where the ball was at, short of the line to gain.
So here we go. 4th down and 1.
Keep an eye on Desmond Patton. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. He's got a size advantage on most cornerbacks.
Minshew leaning up near center. A wide snap, and it will spell doom on this possession for Washington State. Both offenses moving the ball deep into opposition territory. A turnover on an interception for Washington, and then a turnover here on 4th down for Washington State.
We saw a number of snaps that were just off from Frederick Mauingoa, the center for Washington State on this drive. Gardner Minshew did a good job handling them. This one just wide right.
Not even close. Didn't give him a shot on 4th and 1. And so the slide from Minshew on 3rd down proves critical. And the Huskies will have it after this. Fox College Football presented by Ram Trucks is sponsored by American Express, reminding you that tomorrow is Small Business Saturday. So let's get up, get out, and shop. Some of the small town businesses here in Pullman. It's a charming town hosting this one. 111th Apple Cup, which has Myles Gaskin running on 1st down for 7 more, and now over 5,000 for his career. Washington's all-time leading rusher, one of the all-time leaders in this conference.
And he's going to continue to get a lot of work here tonight. One of the more sure-handed running backs in the Pac-12. I said it earlier, when you look at the combination of skills that he has, he's got the vision, he's got the agility, the ability to find the cutback lane. He's a physical runner too, even though he's not that big.
Listed at 5'10", 193, senior out of Linwood, Washington. Back-to-back carries to open this drive. This one shut down. It'll be 3rd and short as Dylan Sherman, the former walk-on, makes the tackle.
Wow, and look at this block by the center, Nick Harris. He's working on number 92, Will Rogers. You want to see a pancake? We had some today at the Old European. That is a pancake, my friend, and it wasn't a huge gain because they didn't get up on the 2nd level. But that is Washington right now imposing their will on the Washington State defensive front.
Time as a starter all 3 years at Washington. Nick Harris ready to snap it on 3rd and 2. Option play. Browning cuts it upfield and gets a 1st down. Our look of confidence brought to you by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. And it's the look of Jake Browning trying to come back from that interception.
And look, he's been through it all. And maybe the first this year for him was getting benched versus Cal. Wasn't having the best game. Wasn't all his fault. A number of drops and other issues going on in that game, but got benched. Since then has responded nicely with the exception of the interception on the last drive.
Play action on 1st down with his eyes downfield. He'll heave one for Andre Bocelli through the snow inside the 20. A perfect strike for a gain of 50.
You run the ball, you run the ball, you run the ball, and then you set up the play action pass game. Here's Bocelli, and he's just going to run really a deep crossing route. And it is one-on-one with Darian Moulton, the cornerback. And Bocelli's one of the faster players on Washington. Really the key here is look at Browning. He throws it across the field. That allows Bocelli to run to the football. A lot of times quarterbacks have the tendency to throw it too far upfield. Talk about a look of confidence.
Jake Browning said that you can question a lot of things about me, and people have throughout his career. But he said his mental toughness, how he handles adversity, is not one of them. And that's what he's most proud of over the course of his career at Washington. Browning says he knows that's what his family is most proud of as well, the way that he's bounced back from the different things he's gone through. That includes that benching at Cal a few weeks back.
And he's a humble kid. You know, we talked to him earlier this season about going to all the camps, everything else that's out there for him. He said, I didn't really want to be a part of it. I knew I wanted to go to Washington. I knew I wanted to play for Chris Peterson. I want to get that process started.
They hustle out of the huddle here and an end around. Savon Ahmed, blocker in front. Inside the 10, it's 1st and goal. Boy, they love to get Ahmed in space any way they can. And the sophomore out of Kirkland, Washington has the Huskies on the doorstep.
He's got 100 less touches than Gaskin. The same amount of touchdowns. He's got burners. They try to utilize him on reverses like we just saw, sometimes in the passing game, and then on jet sweeps outside of your traditional running back spot.
Hey, how pretty is this scene? How perfect is this scene with the snow falling in the Apple Cup?
It doesn't get any better than this. By the way, they got all these big tight ends, and keep an eye on number 1, Hunter Bryant.
1st and goal, straight ahead. Myles Gaskin spinning his way in. Touchdown Washington. The Huskies strike first. There is an injured Washington player down. Jared Hilbers, the left tackle.
Just keep an eye on the right side of the offensive line. So they just wash everything down. That's because Washington State likes to move so much post-snap. And you can't risk pulling a guy and all of a sudden having a Washington State defensive player penetrate that gap. They've got that size advantage we talked about. And then it's just up to Gaskin. Running tough, being physical, continuing to cement his legacy in this series.
And now they turn their attention to Hilbers, who's been so important starting at left tackle this year. Got the job when Trey Adams was injured just a few days before the start of the season. Now Adams is available, having come back from the back surgery. Played his first game in 13 months last week against Oregon State, but they were figuring this was still Hilbers' job and they'd just sprinkle Adams in where they could. Perhaps Trey Adams finds himself with a bigger role coming up because of this.
They talked about wanting to sprinkle in Trey Adams throughout the course of this game. The guy to keep an eye on is Henry Roberts. He could be mixing in as well.
Extra point coming from Peyton Henry. And it's 7-0 Washington. Time for a game break. We say hello to Greg Wolf.
Hi, Joe. Number 6, Oklahoma. Number 13, West Virginia. Winner gets Texas. The Big 12 championship game. Kyler Murray. 55-yard touchdown run on OU's first possession. Second possession hits Marquise Brown for the 7-yard score. Sooners lead 21-14, second quarter. Joe, Brady, back to you.
And that is one, Greg and Brady, that you figure Washington State fans will be watching fairly closely. There's still a chance that these Huskies or these Cougars can make the college football playoff if a few things go right.
I think part of that equation is having a 2-loss Big 12 champion. That's going to be part of that scenario where if indeed Washington State can take care of business, obviously down 7 here, and win the Pac-12, being a 1-loss Power 5 champion, I think they got a shot. But they need some stuff to happen right.
Closing seconds of this first quarter. Peyton Henry to kick it to Travell Harris, couple of freshmen. And with the wind into the end zone, Harris stumbling still tries to bring it out. Almost broke through. Instead dropped at the 22 with 3 seconds. We take a look at the road to the ring, sponsored by Jared, Dare to be Devoted. So some of those scenarios you're talking about that Washington State would need, obviously they need to take care of business, win today and win next week in the Pac-12 championship, and then
Alabama wins out. We don't want any confusion there if you're a Cougar fan. With them losing in the SEC championship game, then potentially does Alabama stay in as a 1-loss team that didn't win its championship? What about Georgia? I think they'd move ahead of LSU, who's currently ahead of them, if indeed that scenario played out. And then obviously Northwestern winning the Big Ten championship, that would do a lot for the Cougars.
Likely the final play of this quarter is shut down as they flip it to Travell Harris, and the nation's leading tackler, Ben Burr-Kirven, brings him down. Through the quarter here in Pullman, Washington with a 7-0 lead, trying to win its 6th in a row against Washington State. This is an untimed down because of a penalty on that final play of the first quarter, or what looked like was the final play. It's Max Borghi for a short gain. The penalty came out on the fringes of the play with Jordan Miller defending Tay Martin. Tay Martin just...
Well, Jordan Miller uses a jump jam. So see, right off the snap, he's going to try to get up into the grill of Tay Martin. Now you can make the case. He's contacting his helmet. Obviously, Tay Martin's not excited about it, so he rips off Jordan Miller's. But that's the chippiness that comes with a rivalry like this.
And so now the first quarter comes to an end. Snow continues to fall with Washington in front 7-0, looking for their second trip to the Pac-12 championship in 3 years, and their sights set on their first Rose Bowl since 2000. Ready for the second quarter as we welcome you back to Fox College Football, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Here in Pullman, 7-0, Washington in front. And yesterday, as Washington State fans have heard of by now probably. On a trip down from Seattle, one of the buses carrying the Washington band turned over on I-90 in icy conditions, and there were no serious injuries, but 47 band members were taken to local hospitals for precautionary measures. And latest update from the school this afternoon was that 2 of the 47 that went to the hospital were still there, and the others back in Seattle. But this is a tribute from the Washington State band before the game, with them deciding not to make the trip. The band director, Brad McDavid, said that the band is like a family and they'll do everything together. And because 47 of them couldn't continue the trip, the entire crew stays back in Seattle. So our thoughts with those guys going through what could be a really scary experience. Really bad roads between Seattle and here in Pullman. Second down, 17 to open this second quarter, with Washington in front 7-0. Winner of this one to the Pac-12 championship game to take on Utah next week. Gardner Minshew on a draw play. Max Borghi breaks a tackle, gets to the 25, where it'll be third down, and we go down to Bruce.
Joe, before the Washington defense came back on the field, Jimmy Lake, the defensive coordinator, was adamant to his linebackers, especially Ben Burke-Hervin, you guys got to own the boundary. He's very concerned about Max Borghi's speed when they dump it off, as well as James Williams. I think that was kind of eye-opening for them earlier in the game, how fast those kids are.
And boundary means the short side of the field, meaning not the longer side of that.
So in this case, that'd be the top of your screen. They're down in 7 for Washington State. Pressure coming out of the secondary. Here's Tay Martin trying to get around Jordan Miller. A flag flies and the drive is extended. Those two going back and forth. It's chippy already, and we've still got 3 quarters to play.
When Gardner Minshew likes to take a shot, it's either Tay Martin or Desmond Patman. There was a lot of pushing and shoving going on. You see him at the bottom of the screen. It's press man-to-man coverage, one-on-one. Really a poorly thrown football by Minshew, but the key is he still gives Martin an opportunity to try to adjust and come back to the football. And because Miller obviously impeded his ability to do that, therein lies the definition of PI.
As we see the rain turn to snow, this theoretically is easier to throw in, right?
Yes, and obviously the wind has died down too, which is your biggest concern.
Play action on first down. Here is Williams out of the backfield, getting a block, then getting crunched by Ben Burke-Hervin, who Jimmy Lake, the D coordinator, calls the Terminator. Guy that's been part of the rotation all 4 years. This is just his second season as a starter, though. Wasn't heavily recruited. 6 foot, about 220, at a Menlo Park, which is right by Stanford, and wanted to go there, but wasn't recruited by the Cardinal. 2nd and 7. Underneath. That is Kyle Sweet. Second catch. 3rd and 2.
He's good at those. That's 2 now. Those low throws, just kind of curling up, getting what you can in the zone coverage.
Body catch.
Let's see, Washington is ready for it. They're breaking on the football. And the biggest key for the Washington defensive front is if they can't get to Minshew, they got to get their hands up. They got to find a way of batting down some of those passes, especially the short ones down around the middle of the field.
3rd down and 2. Nobody in front of that offensive line for Washington State. What an odd look for Gardner Minshew to scan. They run right at it. Jalen Johnson grabbed the hold of James Williams, and it looks like they've spotted him a little bit short. Did they bait him into calling that?
I think that was part of the design, but really what you're trying to do is just say, all right, if you want to throw the football, we're going to try to collapse everything from the outside and see if we can maybe get a tackle for loss. Washington State doesn't run the football that often, but when it's 3rd and short, there's going to be an opportunity. And look, it's 4th inches now. It did the job.
Well, Washington State has had it 4th down and 1 once tonight, and a bad snap derailed it. 4th down and 1 again. Straight ahead again, and James Williams moves it into Washington territory with a 1st down. Behind this offensive line, you know, Gardner Minshew, of course, is going to steal the headlines in this magical season for Washington State. But these big fellas deserve a lot of credit, too.
They've been incredible this year. I mean, they started every single game together. Only 9 sacks given up. We talked about that. Their offensive line coach, Mason Miller, deserves a lot of credit. Watch all the different teams throughout the country that we call games for. I have a hard time finding guys who use better technique than this group.
With a fresh set of downs, Minshew swings it out. James Williams hemmed in, and nice open field tackle by Jordan Miller.
That's going to be one of the keys for the Washington defense. Their cornerbacks coming up and being that force defender, making those plays out in space versus the running backs for Washington State. It's one of the reasons, too, when you look at the style of this air raid offense, the way it spreads the football out horizontally, it plays into the hands of what Washington does well. Their cornerbacks are complete players. They cover and they can tackle.
Team leading 72nd catch of the year for Williams, breaking his own school record. And again, just a three-man rush. So Minshew time to slide, but staring into 8 men in coverage, so he has to throw it away. Ryan Bowman was chasing him down, and it's 3rd and 11.
And this is where Washington wants to live. Because if they only have to rush 3 and they can force Minshew to throw the football away, that's a win. Put them in 3rd and long where they can drop 8 more into coverage. I feel like they have the athletes to match up with the speed of Washington State wide receivers.
I mean, that's been the thing in recent years. Washington's been so good up front. They've not had to bring anybody. They had 5 sacks last year. They had 19 sacks over the last 5 years in this rivalry. Showing pressure from Taylor Rapp. They bring it, but it's just a 4-man rush. So again, there's time, and it's Williams out of the backfield. Rolled into bounds by Elijah Molden, and again, 4th down.
It's the illusion of pressure. They bring a guy like Taylor Rapp who plays safety for him. He's down around the box and line of scrimmage. It makes you think as a quarterback that you have to get the ball out faster than you really have to. Gardner Minshew was not fooled. Ended up taking what the defense gave him. That was just a little dump down to the running back. Not enough, but it will add yards onto the punt.
Which is coming here from Oscar Dragicevic with Aaron Fuller back to return it inside his own 10.
I'm surprised if Washington at some point throughout this game doesn't try to go for one of these.
Very high spiraling punt into the end zone as Moulton couldn't corral it. Washington catches a break there. We'll be back on offense with a 7-0 lead after this.
But today is my day.
Fox College Football presented by Ram Trucks is sponsored by Jeep and by Wendy's, the official hamburger of NCAA football. Washington ready to begin this drive. Before they do, we check in with Bruce.
Joe, injury update for Washington. Jared Hilbers, their starting left tackle, lower right leg. He's trying to get it loose, but he's been pretty ginger on it as he's tried to loosen it up. So Trey Adams, their former standout left tackle, who's been injured, he's loosened up and he's ready to go, and he's taking the field.
Tore his ACL last October and then was ready to come back this year before injuring his back 4 days before the opener, and pressed into a much bigger role than anybody expected here tonight. From the 20, they begin with a play action pass. Browning again with his eyes downfield, out of the backfield, Hunter Bryant. Another guy who's coming back from injury after missing the first 2 months with a knee injury. His 3rd game back, and a big play here for the tight end.
And keep an eye on number 1. He plays in line, he plays in the backfield, and this is just a move the pocket pass. Browning does a good job looking off the defense and coming back to find a wide open Hunter Bryant. List him as a tight end. He's really more of a big wide receiver. 6'2", 225 pounds, extremely athletic.
From the 47-yard line, here's Gaskin. Somehow able to slip his way through and get 8 yards. Chris Peterson described, Brady, this Washington offense so far this year as sporadic. They've had times where they've been explosive, times where they've not done anything. The bottom line is the expectations were higher when you consider what they've done the last 2 years.
Well, part of their issue has been the red zone. You know, you go back to the past couple years, they've been much better at putting the ball in the end zone and not settling for field goals. They're 100th in the country this year in red zone percentage.
Second and 2 from the Washington State 45. Gaskin again. Pallure met him in the hole. Gaskin finishes forward. And it looks like they spot him with enough for a first down.
right now we're watching the Washington State offensive line just erase the defensive front for Washington State. It's going to have to be a heavy dose of Peyton Pelluer going one-on-one a lot of times with Myles Gaskin.
And this has been the story in recent years. Washington just out-physicaling Washington State, and that's Peyton Pelluer's words. He said he thought that year after year during his time here, they've just been tougher.
Out-physical. Is that a,
yeah,
that's the phrase?
Yeah, he made it
say
one.
that?
Yep.
Okay.
Browning to throw. Good field in the pocket. Now steps up and gets tripped up after a gain of 3. Willie Taylor and Will Rogers there for the tackle.
It's the element of Jake Browning's game that I don't think people give him enough credit for. Is you ask the coaching staff, what kind of quarterback he is. They kind of say a scrambling quarterback. And at times that's worked to his detriment. He's taken some big losses, maybe held onto the football too long, but he's also been productive. So instead of it being 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 11, 12, he finds a way of getting a few yards to put them more second in management.
Here it's 2nd and 7. He swings it to Ahmed out of the backfield. Gets a block in front. And another. Hits the sideline. Ahmed inside the 20. And steps out of bounds at the 16. First down Washington. 24 yards from the sophomore.
It's just a swing screen. They find all types of creative ways to get Savon Ahmed the football out in space. And look at the blocking downfield. K-Dot, the tight end. He helps seal the way, and then it's really Ahmed's speed to get to the outside. The question is, did he step out? And yes, sir, it looks like he did. I think that's a favorable spot.
Yeah, I agree. Looks like he steps out at the 18 or 19, and they have him right now at the 16. Well, some confusion there. It looked like either Browning turned the wrong way or the running back went the wrong way. And Micaiah Gilmore took advantage, dropping Gaskin for a loss.
I think that was more by design. Browning reverses open on a lot of their gap schemes, and they got a pulling backside offensive guard. The issue was there was penetration from the front side of the Washington State defense. It's always one of the concerns you have when you got a defense that's slanting angles as much as Washington State does. And because of that, Browning hits the offensive lineman. Things kind of get discombobulated in the backfield and ends up being tackle for loss.
You said it. It's kind of survival for this undersized Washington State defense. Smoke and mirrors and speed for the Cougars. On 2nd down, Browning tucks it. He'll take off. He has room. He's inside the 10. He's close to a first down. Tackled by Skylar Thomas, and there's some of that running ability from Browning. 3rd and short.
So here's Peyton Pelluer. He's going to come free, and Browning knows he's going to come free. And he just says, all right, I'm just going to mosey on out here to the left, and I'm going to keep going downfield and find a way of picking up another, or getting close to it, picking up a first down.
Well, that snow is starting to stick, and footing can become an issue at that point.
Some squinting, too, as he's running downfield. Looks like it's hard for him to see.
Snow in his eyes. 3rd and 1. Everybody packed in tight. Browning to sneak it. Plenty for a first down.
And that brings up the craziest stat preparing for this game. 3rd down, Jake Browning's carried the football, the 2nd most of any player in the Pac-12 this year. How crazy. You wouldn't think that, but going back to the point earlier in this drive of him being more of a scrambling quarterback, it typically happens on 3rd down. And they utilize him in quarterback sneaks as well. I'll be shocked if it's a pass if he doesn't take off and find his way into the end zone at some point.
First down and goal. 3 tight ends in the game for Washington. What a catch on a high snap. Gaskin spins, reaches for the goal line. And in. Touchdown Washington. What fight from Myles Gaskin for his 2nd score this first half. And his domination of the Cougars continuing.
I mean, first it's just Jake Browning being able to get this snap because it was so high. Look at the ups. One-hander, and then finds a way to get it to Gaskin. It's the spin move. Gaskin getting loose on the Palouse.
How long you been holding that one? Been thinking about that all week.
Almost the entire game.
This goes back to Monday, folks. Peyton Henry ready for the extra point. Washington has a 14-0 lead. Myles Gaskin, 2 more touchdowns, and in his Apple Cup career, 9 of them against Washington State. Cougars find themselves in a hole late in this first half. Fox College Football presented by Ram Trucks is sponsored by Progressive Insurance, handing off big savings to you. All Washington so far, 14-0. We take a look at our proven to last, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. It's Myles Gaskin, who is nearing 1,000 yards for the season. He'd be the first in Pac-12 history to have 4 consecutive 1,000-yard campaigns. And this is even though he missed the better part of 2 games with a shoulder injury.
Yeah, and when you think about the games they missed and how different that could have impacted the season for Washington. Maybe it changes the Oregon game. Banged up there. Maybe it changes the Cal game. Didn't play at all.
You got to figure they win the Cal game if he's available, right?
Yeah.
Short kick giving Travell Harris a chance. One of the top kick returners in the country. Has some room and has plenty of speed. A chance to show it off, but lost the football as he crossed midfield. Good angle taken by Keith Taylor. Travell Harris with a 44-yard return, and Washington State with fantastic starting field position.
And this is poor coverage by Washington, and credit Harris for being able to see the seam. Look, right down the gut, right up the middle of the coverage. Just an open window, and there's no one there.
And I said he's one of the fastest, but he did look a little bit like a Florida boy playing in a snow globe there.
Hold on to that football.
Well, a trend continuing in the Apple Cup here, and that is Washington dominance early in the game. If you include this year, under Chris Peterson, Washington outscoring Washington State in the first half 104-13.
Entering into this game, and it's really on Gardner Minshew to respond.
Nation's leading passer, less than 100 yards so far, hands it off to Max Borghi, who's got 4.
But that's what has given this Washington State team hope. It's his confidence. Talk to everyone around the team. They say he's unflappable. He just seems to deal with whatever situation's presented, keeps doing his thing, prepares as good as anyone.
They hope that he's the reason why this year's different for Washington State team. It's lost 5 in a row to Washington. Looking for their first trip to the Pac-12 championship. Here's a dump down from Borghi. Elijah Molden slowed him down, and then the rest of the defense rallied with Brandon Wellington getting credit for the tackle and making it 3rd and short.
You wonder too if Washington State might pick up their tempo just a little bit. You think air raid, typically everyone thinks up-tempo offense. That hasn't been Washington State. You know, coming into tonight's game, they actually led the Pac-12 in time of possession.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
right?
Usually those two things don't go together.
Time of possession and long drives as far as number of plays. Productive, just not exceptionally explosive offensively. On 3rd and short, Minshew, time to scan. A man comes open underneath. That's Calvin Jackson. That's a Washington State first down on what is turning into a really important drive here for the Cougars late in the first half, and Washington set to get the ball to open the second.
Just watch Gardner Minshew's eyes. Starts to the left, doesn't see anything. He's patient. No one's coming to him. Doesn't need to move, doesn't need to go anywhere. Keeps a good base, throws an accurate football first down. I mean, that has been the story of this season for Gardner Minshew.
That O-line again giving him all day to do that. Those comfortable mechanics. Both running backs in there on 1st and 10. It's a shovel pass that is read beautifully by Joe Tryon. A one-time Washington State commit who's really coming on for the Huskies tonight, making his 2nd career start.
It's just a 3-man front, and Tryon, you can see why they're so high on this young man. The redshirt freshman, the spin move, kind of finds all of a sudden James Williams in his lap.
How does a guy that looks like that go pretty much unrecruited? His offers were Washington State and Eastern Washington before the Huskies got involved.
He needed to develop, and I think even in Washington they've said he's slowly come on, and all of a sudden the past few weeks the light switched.
2nd down, 14. Minshew flush this time. On the edge with his eyes downfield. Across the 35. Brandon Wellington ushered him out, and it's 3rd down.
This is so much fun, though. As Minshew's scrambling, Miles Bryant's trying to come up to pitch and make a stop. He slides. I mean, typically you think of field turf. Usually it's a little bit better footing for you. It's not going to be quite as sloppy, especially in the snow, but it's something to keep an eye on.
It's to the point where it's kind of hard to see the yard lines. They're down in 6. 2.5 minutes left in this first half. A Washington State team that averages better than 40 points per game to lead the Pac-12. Looking for his first points tonight. Borghi can't get away. First to get there was Ben Burr-Kirven, and then Taylor Rapp finished him off. 4th and 5.
And the question is whether or not you go for it. We talked earlier about Mike Leach being as aggressive as anyone going for 4th downs this season. Given how this game has gone with the momentum on Washington's side, I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anyone. The question is, where does the football go? Who do you trust the most?
1 for 2 so far today on 4th down.
The guy's typically been James Williams. He's coming into the game leading them in receptions.
Timeout Washington. We'll take the timeout with them. Back for 4th and 4.
Coming up on the State Farm halftime, a top 15 showdown between Oklahoma and West Virginia for a spot in the Big 12 title game. See how 14th ranked Texas survived and earned the first spot. Plus, number 9 UCF. They remain unbeaten, but they lose their star. Joe Brady, back to you guys.
All right, Rob, 4th down and 4 coming up here for Washington State.
Keep an eye on number 6. Jameer Calvin is at the top in the slot.
All right, Bell motions across. Minshew retreating, scanning, well protected, with all day to wait for somebody to come free. His name is Calvin Jackson. A big first down pickup for the Cougs.
Well, if you're going to give Gardner Minshew all day, he's eventually going to find someone. Just a 3-man rush, dropping 8 into coverage. And Minshew, look at him navigate the pocket. He knows he doesn't need to go anywhere until he absolutely has to and feels the pressure. And there lies Calvin Jackson. A good job by the wide receivers for Washington State, continuing to work and finding ways of getting open.
Calvin Jackson had 11 catches in his first 9 games. He's got 13 over the last 2.5. So O'Fresh shut it down. Minshew in trouble. Heaves to the sideline. Kyle Sweet gets popped by Elijah Molden. Inside of a minute now, 2nd down.
I can't tell you how big that 4th down conversion was, too, because if not, you're giving Washington back the football with the momentum, with 2 timeouts. The way they've worked the football down the field, I think they'd go entirely different. Think about this, too. Washington gets the ball at halftime.
2nd down and 4. Both Borghi and Williams in the game here. Minshew very effective, very efficient. Just not a whole lot there in the way of yardage. Play action. Minshew slides. Still looking. Dump it off for Borghi. He was pulled down inside the 20 by Miles Bryant. And 3rd down coming up.
Does such a good job not forcing things and just taking what the defense gives him. You know, Minshew spent some time with Hal Mumme, largely credited with the innovator of the air raid offense in Jackson State. This past spring, once he decided that he was going to be coming to Washington State, he said, you know, I better learn from the guy who invented this. And he went up every day, spending time during the spring, listening to Hal Mumme. He could really teach and install the offense. And that was something that I think has paid off huge dividends for him coming up to Pullman, really having a strong grasp and understanding of what Mike Leach wanted.
Before this 3rd down, we check in quickly for a game break with Greg.
All right, Joe, thanks. We go back to Morgantown. Figured to see plenty of offense tonight for the Sooners defense, delivering one of its biggest plays of the season. Caleb Kelly strips Will Greer, scoops it up, goes 10 yards for the touchdown. Sooners lead the Mountaineers 35-28 at the half. Joe, Brady, back to you.
Washington State fans rooting for West Virginia in that game, hoping to ensure a 2-loss Big 12 champion. But they've got plenty of their own business to take care of. And a 14-0 hole and facing 3rd and 3. Minshew underneath again. That's the first catch for Desmond Patman. And it sets up 1st down. Said that his knee was down, but it is enough for a 1st down with 41 seconds left.
Just going to say, it looked like once he kind of settled, the ball was low enough where he's a big guy, 6'4". Clearly, he was able to catch the football. His knee was still down. Nonetheless, 1st down.
Clock running. Now it's blown dead. Timeout Washington.
Prior to the snap, second charge timeout Washington. Please put 37 seconds on the game clock.
Coming up at halftime, stay tuned. Rob Stone, Dave Wannstedt, Matt Leinart, Robert Smith have the State Farm halftime show. Top 15 showdown in the Big 12. They'll recap that. Texas clinching one of the spots in the Big 12 title game, taking care of Kansas today. And as Rob told you, UCF stays unbeaten, but comes at a cost today. Such an important drive here for Washington State. Down 14-0. Washington ready to get the ball to open the second half. But a big pickup on third down as Minshew stays very efficient, 16 of 19, just trying to crack the end zone for the first time tonight.
I would be surprised too if they don't try to run the football maybe here. It's not outside the realm. They still have a timeout left, so it's not out of the playbook at this point. Or maybe even Minshew taking off too and being a part of that. You know, they're a pass-happy team. You get to this portion of the field, it becomes a little bit more difficult. And Washington's dropping 8 guys into coverage. It's hard to find passing lanes.
Minshew all season has been really effective even in these tight spaces. They're one of the top red zone teams in the country. They hand it to Williams, who gashes it. Touchdown Washington State. Boy, they needed it badly, and they got it from the junior. Had to have it.
And when they run the football, it's always going to be inside zone. It's that and draws. Those are basically what they hang their hat on in the running game. We talked about it a second before. Even though they're an air raid offense, it's still in the playbook. We got a timeout like that in this scenario, and especially if you're going to have the favorable box count where you can wall everyone off behind their big left tackle, Andre Dillard,
who's one of the best in the country. Washington State gets on the board with 33 seconds left in the half when we look back at the touchdown.
It's pretty simple. We talked about it. It's a numbers game. They've got a favorable box count, and watch as everyone just really blocks down. It's enough for James Williams to utilize his speed, get to the second level. And it's just Miles Bryant taking a bad angle. He's not able to get a hand in on him. This running game is effective. People say you got to have balance. You got to run the football. This team sprinkles in it enough where I think it keeps defenses from being able to tee off on them all the time, rushing the passer in the passing game.
The guy, James Williams, that had a good season last year, but he came into this year thinking that he could be a whole lot better. Huge offseason for him. Worked extra hard. And has produced now 15 touchdowns this year.
How about the play by Minshew? Finding a way of converting on that fourth down. Mike Leach with the confidence to go for it. To me, was the drive, the play that really changed the drive for Washington State and the momentum in this game.
And just for the mental side of it too, I mean, these guys are only human. They can say that they don't talk about years past, but they've had 0 success against Washington, and it's only human nature to look at a 14-0 deficit going into halftime thinking, here we go again. It's a line drive of a kick taken by one of the up men. The ball comes out. Washington State's got it. Desmond Patton recovers at the 26, and still 28 seconds left.
It looked like Brian Green was the player who jarred the ball loose. Desmond Patman, who's a part of this kickoff coverage group, ends up being Johnny on the spot. Desmond Patman helped create a TD last week on kickoff coverage with good hustle. And you squib that kick too because you put it on the ground. Guess what? That ball comes up wet. It's hard to handle, especially for an upman who's not accustomed to doing that.
And it's Koldu Batz, one of the 59s, that forces that fumble. That gives it back to Washington State. First down from the 26. Minshew again underneath. Max Borghi stumbles. And as weather's starting to wreak havoc on this game, Cougars will use their final timeout with 20 seconds.
So with 20 seconds left, you know, you can run one play and come up and spike it. If indeed the ball is inbounds, the clock's still running. So you got a couple opportunities here. time-wise after that, you got to start thinking, taking what you can get, maybe with a field goal. You look at Dubats, he's fired up.
How about Gardner Minshew, Brady? 17 of 20, 95 yards. I'm not sure we've seen a throw go more than 10 yards downfield.
I credit the Washington defense. I mean, it's not like they're giving up a bunch of big plays. It hasn't been their MO all year, and they're keeping everything in front of them. Forcing Gardner Minshew to do what he's done all season long, and go the long and hard way to try to find a way of getting points.
Trying to take advantage of the special teams turnover here. Out of timeouts now, 2nd down and 7. As they've done much of the half, just a 3-man rush. And as Minshew's done much of the half, gets rid of it with the pressure coming from Ryan Bowman. It'll be 3rd and 7 as he once again tried to check it down to Borghi.
And Ryan Bowman's a guy who always pops on film. Doesn't have a sack this season, but it seems like he's always close or around the quarterback. One of the more faster, twitchy guys. They like to put him in on these passing situations. But now you're looking at the territory where this is really tough. If you complete this ball in bounds, yes, the clock stops if it's a 1st down.
We're going to take a look at this.
Yeah.
See if the ball. No. I think they may.
The play clock was not running. We'll put it at 25 and we'll start on my ready.
All right. So 3rd and 7. Closing seconds of this first half in the 111th Apple Cup. Minshew taking a shot to the end zone. A jump ball, and it's picked off by Byron Murphy. So Washington's defense able to ensure that that special teams miscue doesn't bite them. And the Huskies are primed to take the lead into the break.
Well, in these conditions, there's no gimme that you're even going to make a field goal if indeed this ends up incomplete and you have the opportunity to. But this is the risk you take when you essentially throw up a Hail Mary. Maybe one of the smaller guys back there, Byron Murphy's the one who ends up going and getting the football. JoJo McIntosh and the rest of the Washington defense ends up silencing the crowd.
This is incredible. I mean, there is so much going on. When you consider the stakes and the environment and the weather and the swings and momentum over these first 30 minutes. With a trip to the Pac-12 championship game at stake. 14-7 Washington. We get you to Rob Stone in Los Angeles for the State Farm halftime show. Back on Fox College Football, sponsored by Ram Trucks. Built to serve. Got the Zambonis out. Scraping the surface off. Went from rain to a little bit of snow to close to an inch during the first half. And we're ready to get the second half started for this 111th Apple Cup. Glad you're with us. Hope you're having a great Thanksgiving weekend, Joe and Brady. And for a while there, it was looking like same old with Washington having a 14-0 lead. Washington State got a touchdown they had to have there late in the first.
Yeah, huge conversion on 4th down, and really Gardner Minshew has been efficient, but the lowest total for him this entire season in the first half in regards to passing yards. You have to go back to week 1 versus Wyoming, 128 passing yards in that game in the first half. So, you know, clearly credit the Washington defense not allowing them to get some of those bigger plays downfield or yards after the catch. Biggest thing though, ball security will be paramount moving forward. So each team's got to really focus on taking care of the football. We've already seen 2 turnovers apiece.
Washington will have the ball to open this second half. Looking for their second trip to the Pac-12 championship in 3 years, and their sights set on their first Rose Bowl since 2000. Washington State looking for a school record 11th win and their first trip to the Pac-12 championship game. Let's go down to Bruce.
Joe, I asked Mike Leach, I said, only 146 yards. How do you get this offense going? He goes, you know, we're not getting any of the explosive plays. They're really hard to do that against. We just got to keep staying in it and keep grinding and just keep playing. On the other side, Chris Peterson told me the game plan will adjust a little bit just because of the conditions. He goes, you know, taking care of the ball will be paramount. We got to keep feeding Miles. I like what we're doing. We just got to stay in it and keep battling.
All right, Bruce. Here comes Browning in this offense. 2 touchdowns for Myles Gaskin in that first half. All 11 men defensively within about 8 yards of the line of scrimmage for Washington State, helping them slow Gaskin on this first play with Jalen Thompson in the tackle. We look at our Geico first half stats. It was 96 passing yards for Washington State, the lowest first half total since Mike Leach's second season, 2013.
Credit again, Chris Peterson, his staff are coming up with a game plan to limit the effectiveness of Gardner Minshew and really everyone else on the perimeter, not allowing some of those big plays.
Out of an empty set, Jake Browning threw it just 6 times during the first half. He's in trouble, but a whistle. Well, the whistle didn't come until late. There was a flag down around the line of scrimmage.
Offense number 76. 5-yard penalty. Remains second down.
Second time tonight, Luke Wattenberg's gotten called.
Interesting what Bush Hamdan, the offensive coordinator for Washington's, coming out doing. Used a lot of big personnel in the first play. Second down, coming out, spreading out the field on an empty formation. Utilize to get the football to Savon Ahmed, the man in motion.
Part of the trips to the top now. They get it in his hands. Washington State all over it with Peyton Pallur shutting it down for a loss.
Well, clearly, when Savon Ahmed's in motion, there's a reason for it. Check out Peyton Pallur, the 6th-year senior. He's sniffing it out.
6-year senior, 4th generation Cougar football player. Wearing the 47 that his dad wore, following in the footsteps of Grandpa and his great-grandpa back in the 1920s, played in the Apple Cup.
Aaron Fuller's been quiet today. He's the leading wide receiver coming into the game.
That doesn't have a catch yet. 3rd and 16. Only a 3-man rush. Browning with time to scan. I'll step up. Let it go. Hitting a crossing. Hunter Bryant. A first down and more. On his feet into Washington State territory. Boy, have they been missing a big play threat like that. 57 yards for the sophomore.
And it was really the mobility of Browning to buy time in the pocket. Nothing was there early on. The Washington State defense had everyone hemmed up. And then once he moved, Bryant uncovers. You can see the awkward body throw for the big play. And watch him, he's gonna wait. Now he's gonna find the opening, come across the field. That's what makes him so effective. The athleticism at that size, finished last year 3rd on the team in receptions. What a huge get to be able to have him back.
2 catches, 84 yards in this game. Ahmed comes in motion. This could be a trick play. Fuller on a double pass. That's a Washington touchdown. Right back to Bryant.
You think with weather like this, you throw out those special plays in the playbook. Not the case whatsoever. Bush Hamdan pulls one out, and it's all about the lateral here, and then you're going to see Hunter Bryant. He's going to release downfield and gets lost and really caught up in everything. And this was set up by a play earlier in this drive. The quick screen out to Savon Ahmed. You thought maybe Washington's going to be more conservative. No, they were moving the sticks, making some big plays, and obviously capitalizing right there.
You said watch out for Aaron Fuller, who's been quiet. Is that what you had in mind there?
Yeah, of course.
Right.
I mean, a wide receiver pass, double pass.
Yeah. That one's blocked and headed the other way. There goes Hunter Dale looking for 2. Tevis Bartlett trying to chase him down and save 2 points to no avail.
Every point matters. And you better believe those 2 points are going to be important. Now the rest of this game finishes.
Flips it by a field goal. Instead of a 14-point game, it's 11.
And let's take another look almost looked like this ball wasn't going to get up anyway. I mean, that's just a low kick. It wasn't too tough for anyone to block, and then you see Hunter Dale taking advantage. Now, he's getting loose on the Palouse.
Fox College Football presented by Ram Trucks is sponsored by Battlefield 5. Battlefield will never be the same. Rated M for mature. And by Wendy's, the official hamburger of NCAA football. This is our crew dinner last night. Thank you to our crew for the wonderful work all season long, and not just all season long, but especially this week where they leave their families for Thanksgiving and come be with their family on the road.
I was just going to say, man, we're family. Tight-knit group. It's a work hard, play hard group. A lot of fun to be around. You got to love the fact that everyone was really just enjoying an opportunity to be together.
Not an easy night on a camera crew shooting through this, doing a fantastic job. Here's a short kick that Travell Harris takes. And bumped out of bounds at the 27. So Gardner Minshew, 17 of 22, but just 96 yards, gets his first crack here in the second half.
Yeah, he started off wanting to kind of take in the elements, right? Accustomed to playing this, being from Brandon, Mississippi. But early on, it's just been his kind of manipulation of the defense. Not much has been there for him downfield, utilizing his athleticism and his legs. And then he's got to make some awkward body throws, but he's done a good job of finding plays when there hasn't been anything there. Talk about it, taking what the defense gives you. #1 rule of playing quarterback.
Start the second half with a dump down. James Williams. So now 11 of his 18 completions have gone to running backs, which is nothing new for Minshew in this offense.
The surprising thing, for me at least, is just the distribution of the football. Only 5 players have caught passes. Last week, 11 versus Arizona.
Yeah, so 5 players with a catch today. They had 6 players with a touchdown catch against Arizona. Williams swings out, opens up a void, but instead he goes to Williams and low. So 3rd down and 4 for the Cougars.
And that's when you all of a sudden start getting a drive going, putting the ball down on the ground. Sometimes it comes up a little wet, a little slick from the center. It's not too cold down in the field, even though it's snowing. It's actually not that bad. But really, it's just that slickness on the football is going to play a factor in your grip.
Ohio boy telling a Mississippi boy, Gardner Minshew, not that bad. 3rd down. They bring 4 on the slant. First catch of the day for Tay Martin. We got off to such a great start this season. Breakout season for the sophomore from Houma, Louisiana.
And he typically really excels in those isolated routes. And they like to go to him when he's one-on-one. Saw that on the very last plays, working against Jordan Miller. It's been a very competitive matchup throughout the course of the game. But the footing now is starting to play a factor for these DBs of Washington. Miller lost his footing when he tried to break on the pass.
At the 41, quarterback draw. Minshew stumbling past the 45. Brandon Wellington tripped him up. Minshew, the leading rusher for the Cougs so far tonight.
No one saw that coming into this game. And if you look for adjustments here so far in the second half, the Washington defense playing more too high coverage. They've sprinkled a little bit more this year as Jimmy Lake has taken over the play calling duties on defense. But it was more post-high safety in the first half. Post-high zone, putting that extra guy down around the box or line of scrimmage. Now it's been more too high in the second half.
One of the staples of the defense this year has been preventing big plays. They do that as well as any defense in the country. In trouble here. Spiked into the ground. There's still no signal. Now the flag comes out. It's intentional grounding as Greg Gaines, the most experienced player on that defense, got to it.
16. Lost it down at the spot of the foul. 3rd down.
First sack tonight.
Yeah, if you're a Washington fan, you got to love big Greg Gaines. A bit of 6'2", 315 pounds, and bring your lunch pail. This guy does not give up. He's relentless. He plays low. Kind of reminds me of Kyle Williams for the Buffalo Bills at the next level.
And he does it with no gloves. Adds to the appeal.
Adds to the toughness.
They're down 16 after that penalty.
Sometimes you see a screen in this scenario. It's Washington State. Borghi is pretty good out in space when he gets it.
Here it is. Borghi needs to get it to the 49 in Washington territory and won't, thanks to the tackle from Jordan Miller. And so it's 4th down and 7. And here comes the punt team.
These cornerbacks for Washington have been busy. Miles Bryant had a few tackles. Elijah Molden did as well. He was out there. Miller's gotten in the mix. This Washington State defense really challenges you to cover all 53 yards of the field horizontally.
Dragicevic doesn't have enough attempts to qualify, but he's been one of the best in the country when given the opportunity. It's a good one that sends Fuller back inside his own 15, and great coverage on special teams on a 45-yard punt with a tackle coming from Kainoa Wilson. Washington back on offense after this. American Express is reminding you that tomorrow is Small Business Saturday, so let's get up, get out, and shop small. Small Business Saturday, proudly backed by American Express. Back here in Pullman. You can check out one of those small businesses this morning. The Old European Breakfast.
Oh, so good.
Really good.
Took a nap after that one.
20-9, Washington in front here in the Apple Cup. Looking for a trip to the Pac-12 championship, perhaps a trip to the Rose Bowl. They've not gone since 2000. They open this drive with a toss to Myles Gaskin, who looks to cut it back. No lane for that. Stopped by Dylan Sherman, and we go down to Bruce.
Joe, that double pass touchdown for Washington before, that was like old Chris Peterson from Boise State. You know, he's all mild-mannered and really low-key, but he's really the king of the trick play in college football, and he's always does it in big games, and this is just the latest example of it. We'll see if he has any more tricks up his sleeve.
4-0 in Apple Cups, Bruce, by an average of 41-14.
The hard thing about that play, too, is Hunter Bryant, given the fact how much he's been out, only had 3 catches coming into the game.
They empty it out here and throw a screen for Andre Bocelli. He's got room. He's able to slip a tackle and break free across the 40. Andre Bocelli, 3rd catch of the day, goes for 38 yards near midfield.
And this was all about the misdirection, the design of the play by Chris Peterson, Bush Hamdan and company. Browning's going to catch the football. He's going to go back, pump to the right. That allows the blocking downfield to get set up for Bocelli, and then he just turns on the afterburners after running through a tackle.
Jake Browning is now 8 for 9 for 206 yards. More than 20 yards per attempt. You look on the other side, the nation's leading passer, Gardner Minshew, 20 of 26, but 116.
It's been the big plays. Seen a number of them so far.
Back into the pistol on 1st down from the 45, and a gaping hole for Myles Gaskin. That's just too easy.
I mean, Gaskin might be the size of the Mini Cooper. You could have driven a Mack truck through that thing.
There's a flag down. Maybe that's why.
Replay 1st down.
So that's why you could drive a Mack truck through it.
Let's take another look. Take a look at the left side of your screen. I believe that's where it comes from. I mean, I guess they're calling it on Drew Sample. I'm not sure there was a ton there. As he's going to the ground, you might want to just let go. It looks like he's shoving him, but it looked like it was actually a pretty good block.
Significant penalty there instead of 2nd down and short. 1st down and about 17 back in their own territory. Into the short side, Gaskin waits for the blocks to develop. Gets one from Luke Wattenberg and gets back some of the penalty yards. Jalen Thompson pushes him out.
Wattenberg, Cade Otton, we've seen that on this drive now a couple times. And really it's just getting Gaskin out on the edge. And they're able to cut off the Washington State defense. And you've got bigger lead blockers like Wattenberg, who's 307 pounds. And Cade Otton paving the way for Gaskin.
Gaskin holding that shoulder. Remember, he missed 2 games with a shoulder injury. Leaves. Ahmed comes in, motions out. Browning throwing the screen back to Bocelli. They broke off a big play on this one earlier. Washington State was all over it this time, forcing a fumble that's recovered by Nick Harris.
Well, Bocelli tried to go too far inside. If he just stays out wide, he's got a seam right there. But instead, he tries to go inside of Nick Harris. He did a good job of helping to seal off Dylan Sherman.
Maybe he couldn't see through the snowstorm.
That could have been part of it. A lot of times it's just your momentum, and you almost feel like you want to keep your legs moving and obviously follow into where that sidewalk's going to be.
Penalty has set him back. 3rd and 15.
Oh, the cushion down on the bottom of the screen to Ty Jones.
Browning looking the other direction. In trouble. Lost the football. Washington State scrambling for it. And they've got it. Willie Taylor, the redshirt freshman, knocked it out of there. And the Cougars in business.
We talked about it at half. Ball security is going to be paramount. And this is a case where Browning takes off one hand. And he's waving it around, and it ends up being Willie Taylor knocking it out. There's Dylan Sherman able to fall on the football.
It's like old turkey bowls in the backyard. They're playing in the snow, scrambling for it.
That's really where Washington State's excelled this year. 17 turnovers gained coming into tonight's game.
Fox College Football presented by Ram Trucks is sponsored by SoFi, personal finance company to fit your goals, and by Jared, dare to be devoted. They had 3 takeaways over the previous 4 Apple Cups. They've got 3 tonight, and the latest has given Gardner Minshew and the Cougars a first down in Washington territory. Handed off to Borghi. Smallest of holes. He's able to sneak through it initially, but not a whole lot doing. A gain of just 2. Tevis Bartlett and Keith Taylor combined on the tackle.
Washington not giving Washington State many opportunities to utilize one-on-one coverage on the outside. Almost daring Washington State to do something they don't do a ton of, run the football.
Minshew hits the crosser. Aesop Winston, first catch of the game. First down inside the 15. The junior college transfer in his first year of action here at Washington State. What a find he's been.
And I think everyone in the stadium knew where Minshew was going with the football. As soon as Aesop Winston started running on a shallow cross across the field, the Washington defense just dropped back. There's almost 5 to 10 yards of separation between him and the next defender.
They can still get a first down here. It's first down and 10 from the 11-yard line. James Williams, big hole inside the 5, right at the marker.
And almost an area you feel uncomfortable when you run an air raid system, yards and shotgun. You're that close. I also say just run it in, just sneak it in.
Take it away, back him up, get him a little more space. 2nd down and inches. They go back to the ground. Williams fighting. Looks like he's got a first down, but Ben Burr-Kirven ensured that that was all. First down and goal for Washington State.
You'd imagine that they'd keep wanting to run the football in, wanting to kind of utilize this offensive line that's done such a tremendous job this year. But they're going to have one-on-one coverage on the outside. A lot of times you see Washington State run these different pick routes legally. They find ways of helping to scheme guys open.
Right back to the ground. Williams sticks the nose down. The ball might have come out. It did. Now they signal touchdown. It's a touchdown for James Williams. His 2nd of the game. No question, replay will take a look.
That's a touchdown.
The key's going to be, does he have possession of the football? When he crosses the goal line,
it's going to be hard to tell.
Yeah, and I believe that's pretty definitive. It's really the ball pops out when he lands on the ground, and at that point is already a foot in the end zone.
Yeah, that's a touchdown, even through the snow.
There would be nothing
clearly
there, yeah, definitive, that would ever overturn that.
So now the question is, do you chase some points here, go for 2, and try and make it a 3-point game, taking quickly advantage of that 2 points they got on the block PAT?
I mean, I think the question comes down, how confident are you that you can kick a PAT?
That too.
Versus convert on a 2-point conversion. Maybe you feel like you have better chances doing a 2-point conversion versus putting the hands of your special team.
And even in good conditions this year, remember Blake Maz has had 2 blocked.
Yeah. Surprising your offensive line could be so good, but your field goal kicking or PAT hasn't been.
They've only gone for 1 2-point conversion this year, and it failed.
After review, the ruling of touchdown is confirmed.
So the score is confirmed. Second of the game for James Williams. And it looks like they are going to send the offense out there to try and make this a 3-point game. What kind of call do you like here from Mike Leach?
Well, I think you're obviously going to try to throw the football here. But the biggest key for me is who they're going to end up targeting. And like I said before, they like to run all these different picks or essentially screens for a certain player, whoever it may be. And James Williams is a guy who's targeted a lot out of the backfield. Given how much man-to-man coverage you get in this area of the field, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't find a way of getting the football.
Travell Harris stumbles as he goes in motion. Minshew looks left first, now rolls to his right, back of the end zone. That's caught, but out of bounds. He went for Aesop Winston. Good coverage, Byron Murphy, and it remains a 5-point game. And the 111th Apple Cup, a series that goes back to 1900. A Jake Browning turnover sets the table for the Cougs to get back to within a score. Got a great rivalry right here. Got a great rivalry tomorrow on Fox. Michigan and Ohio State for the 115th time. Michigan's lost 6 in a row in that series. The Wolverines and the Buckeyes in the game with coverage starting at 11 a.m. Eastern on Fox.
I can't wait to watch that one. Joel and Gus are in for a good one. You've got that high-powered, high-octane passing offense from Ohio State going up against the #1 defense in the Big Ten in Michigan. Gotta love defensive coordinator Don Brown. Talking about, I'm not scared. He goes, I'm going to bring pressure from wherever. He goes, I'm not going to play back. That's what they want you to do.
Yeah, it'll be 11 Eastern tomorrow morning. Coverage beginning. 20-15 here in the Apple Cup. Sean McGrew watches this one sail over his head. Yeah, the Huskies will start at the 25-yard line on a day where they've turned the ball over 3 times.
I think the biggest thing that's been impactful is obviously scoring opportunities. You had it down in the red zone. You took away at least even the opportunity to come away with a field goal. Then you've got a blocked PAT that goes back for a 2-point conversion. And this one, 3rd down, Jake Browning trying to make a play. You give Washington State the football back into a territory where you're basically at least coming away with a field goal attempt at a minimum.
And again, in the 4 games Chris Peterson has coached Washington against Washington State, they've turned it over a total of 3 times. Big part of the reason they have absolutely dominated the Cougs the last few years. A little different story tonight. A little different story on the scoreboard too. The freshman tight end Cade Otton going nowhere. Undercut by Hunter Dale for a loss of 2. Down to Bruce.
Oh, Globe. The visibility is horrible. It's just swirling around. I think players are having a hard time kind of keeping their focus in it. Also, every player is struggling with their footing, trying to get their feet set because the snow is just chunking up in their cleats.
I was worried for a second there you had frozen cold and couldn't speak. I'm glad you're okay, Bruce. I was worrying about you. 2nd down and long. Browning with a deep drop. Wide throw. Skipped in there. And it's just looking sloppy right now between the footing, the ball handling. It's 3rd and 12.
And that's a tough throw to make when you don't throw it on time. You know, you've got Bocelli out there waiting for it. There's a defensive back breaking on it. So Jake Browning rushes the throw and ends up burning it into the ground.
I mean, that's a hard throw, even on a perfect day.
Yeah. Opposite hash all the way across the field. Now you talk about these conditions. You wonder if it's just not more of a conservative play call here, a draw, some sort of short completion to try to get you yards after the catch.
They're perfect on third down today. That includes a long third down conversion earlier in this half. Conservative play call. It's a screen to Bocelli, who gets 8, but not going to get a first down. It'll be 4th and about 4. Here comes the punt team.
And every time you put your punt team out in the field, you kind of hold your breath. A lot of times you're putting the game in the hands of your punter, your holder, when you're talking about kicking the football. And these guys are sitting there freezing on the sidelines, trying to keep their hands warm just so they can receive the long snap.
It's the first punt of the day for Washington. Washington State uses 2 punt returners, Travell Harris and Kyle Sweet. Sweet is the more sure-handed of the two, and he's back to watch this one bounce. Takes a good bounce for the Huskies. Inside the 20, down to the 21. Time for a game break. Hello again, Greg Wolf.
Hi, Joe. Berth to the Big 12 championship on the line. 5th lead change of the 3rd quarter. Will Greer hits Gary Jennings Jr. 75-yard score. Greer thrown for 494 yards and 4 touchdown passes. West Virginia back on top, 49-45, end of the 3rd. Joe, Brady, back to you.
What a night for college football.
Well, that's huge for Washington State. We talked about what it would take if they could win here tonight and win the Pac-12 championship, what it could take to possibly give them a shot at getting in the college football playoff. 2-loss Big 12 champion would, I think, help make their case.
Start this drive from their own 21-yard line. Gardner Minshew over the middle. It's the crossing Tay Martin, who's promptly pulled down by DJ Beavers. Now, Washington's defense is healthy as they've been in a long time. They get DJ Beavers back last week. His first game since the opener when he injured his Achilles, and the staff would tell you that they've really missed DJ Beavers. Second and 6. Minshew lofts it up, picked off by Ben Burr-Kirven. He got drilled by Levi Onwuzurike, and the ball fluttered up there, picked off by the senior Burr-Kirven.
The first poor decision that he's made all night, really trying to force this football to the shallow cross, and this is what happens. And there's Onwuzurike, matched up one-on-one with Frederick Mauigoa. And look at it, it's really a pick stunt, and it's actually designed not for him, but for Ryan Bowman on the outside, but he finds his way through the protection, and an offensive line that has just done such a good job this year for Washington State ends up giving up a pivotal sack that ends up really turning into an interception.
And so now 3 turnovers on both sides. The Huskies trying to take advantage the way the Cougars just did. Inside the 30, the drive begins. Onto the I with a Gaskin run. Room off the left side to stick his nose down and a gain of 8.
It looks like this is going to be coming back.
10-yard penalty. First down.
I believe it might have been Caleb McGarry as the guilty party. He was standing next to Logan Tago. That was excited about the fact he got held.
Been a handful of holding calls tonight against this undersized but fast Washington State defense that the O-line's trying to deal with.
Well, and that's what they force you to do. They force you to adjust after the snap when they're moving. And if you're not utilizing the proper technique, you don't have the right footing, of course you're going to end up grabbing to try to do your job.
On 1st and 20, a drop play. Gaskin can't get away. Good tackle by Hunter Dale, who's having a great game.
This is a huge play. You know, you don't want to obviously come away with nothing here. You'd like to try to cut this in half and try to make it 3rd and manageable if you could, or at least even, 3rd and 10. And I'm not sure how comfortable Chris Peterson would even feel looking at a field goal attempt given the conditions right now. So you almost wonder if 4 downs are in play here.
2nd and 19. Gaskin. Short game with a stop from Skylar Thomas, leading the way in tackles for Washington State tonight. 3rd down and about 17.
And Thomas has been pretty nosy around the line of scrimmage, but Peyton Pelluer is the guy that forced Gaskin to cut that football back to Skylar Thomas. He's so quick to react in the run game. One of the reasons why he came into tonight's game 76 tackles, one of those tackling machines.
So from the 35-yard line, really not close to field goal range in these conditions. Browning to the outside. That's wide of Ty Jones. When it's 4th down, you may see a punt on 4th down from the 35-yard line here.
Take a look at Ty Jones just coming out of this route. We want to talk about footing and how bad it is. Watch how slow he is to really turn. Look, see him kind of tempering down. And so that ball is actually not thrown in a bad place. The problem is it's thrown for a nice, warm, sunny day when the footing's okay. He puts it outside where it should be. Look at Ty Jones is so scared of slipping. He kind of tippy-toes through it and doesn't get much.
Offense stays out there on 4th down. Could you see a quick kick?
Of course.
Quarterbacks love doing that, don't they?
Oh, too much.
You'd rather go, but you get to do that every now and then. Goes into the end zone, and Washington State will have it. So we take a look at our heavy-duty players, sponsored by Ram Trucks. Built to serve as this 3rd quarter winds down. Heavy-duty player this one, Ben Burr-Kirven. Bunch of tackles and an interception.
And obviously, you can make the case a game-changing play somewhat there, even though Washington wasn't able to capitalize off of it. But he's been all over the field. Done a good job dropping back into zone coverage, coming up, making plays when they've been there in the running game as well. He's really been a tackling machine all year long. Could say they call him the Terminator.
Yeah, love that. So inside of a minute here in the 3rd quarter. 20-15 Washington. They've not trailed in this game. Gardner Minshew, fresh off the interception, hands it off. Williams, a big hole into the secondary. And a chunk play to open this drive of 17 yards.
I said it earlier, really last drive, Washington's almost daring Washington State to try to run the football. Very wide techniques. Just giving up that middle portion of the field. Look at the difference, though. This Washington State team having Gardner Minshew, it's the fact they've played a lot closer games and are giving themselves chances going into the 4th quarter.
5 blockers on 5 men in the box, so they run it again, but Ryan Bowman able to shed the block and throw him down. And Burr-Kirven there as well.
Just kind of put a cap on the conversation. You go back to last year, I mean, in their 4 losses, they lost by an average of 27 points. I mean, this year, when they've been going in the 4th quarter, they're either leading or they've got an opportunity to come back because it's within 1 score. And Minshew's got 3 game-winning drives this season.
Minshew wanted to snap it, but the quarter will wind out. Washington State in search of a school record 11th win. Their first trip to the Pac-12 title game. Washington trying to spoil it. Their sights set on the Rose Bowl and a return trip to the championship game for the 2nd time in 3 years. Back on Fox College Football, sponsored by Ram Trucks. Built to serve, ready for the 4th quarter of the Apple Cup. And for the first time since 2008, it's within a 5-point game going into the 4th quarter. Let's check in with Bruce.
Joe, the conditions have gotten a lot worse down here. The wind is howling. I feel like the temperature's dropped a few degrees, and the snow is caked on everybody's cleats.
Now, we've seen it be an issue with footing. We've seen the throws not as sharp as this game has gone on. 4th quarter will begin with a 2nd down and 9 for Gardner Minshew and the Cougars. He pumps short and throws short to Tate Martin.
And it looked like the winds changed its direction. It was going with Washington State at the beginning of this game. Based on the direction they're going now, it looks like it's actually going against them. Obviously a lot harder to try to cut through the wind throwing the football. That's the biggest deterrent as a quarterback. You got to make sure you spin that thing so it cuts through a little easier. And being cold like this, ball sometimes being wet too, coming off the ground, it makes it that much more difficult.
As you might expect in conditions like this, turnovers have been part of the story. 3 on both sides. Bernard Bell motions across the formation on 3rd and 4. Minshew finds Martin crossing, pulls the trigger now. It's picked off again. Elijah Molden.
Rolling on the field is a catch interception. 1st down.
The 3rd interception today thrown by Gardner Minshew.
Did the ball hit the ground? Yeah, I think it's pretty definitive there.
Rolling on the field that the Washington player caught the ball is under review.
Yeah, that one looks like you're right. It's going to be overturned.
You'd like to ask those guys to try to cradle it more, use their hands more, but like they're defensive backs.
That's right.
You know, they're on that side of the field for a reason. And this is tough to catch the football in any conditions, regardless of what position you play.
Boy, and I think even since Bruce said the conditions have gotten worse, they've gotten even worse since then.
Yeah.
The snow's starting to swirl.
And that's really twice now we've seen Gardner Minshew take chances when he really hasn't needed to, or he hasn't done that. That hasn't been his MO all year. And you saw him throw away the football in the last drive when he's getting pressure from Onwuzurike. Burr-Kirven picks that off. This one nearly picked off when he started to get movement in the pocket, kind of turned back to throw across his body. I talked about in the beginning of the game how decisive he is. Usually he aligns his body to his throws more, couldn't there, and really forced that pass.
Now, Washington's defense has had that effect on Washington State quarterbacks throughout the years. All of them prolific. All of them have struggled
After
in this
review,
game.
it's been determined that the ball went through the receiver's hand, hit the ground, therefore incomplete. It will be fourth down.
Okay, so 4th and 4. And now what?
Well,
you consider?
figure they would punt. No, I mean, not in this portion of the field. I mean, look, the problem is as the weather picks up, the wind picks up really, you know, all of a sudden the style of play for Washington State becomes that much more difficult because they're not a team that's going to run the football. And Washington has already shown throughout the course of this game their effectiveness to do that. So you know, that's the tough part for Washington State is at some point they may have to show the ability either to complete some of those passes, have more success in the short passing game like we've kind of seen, or start running the football a bit more. Put Williams and Borghi in the field at the same time. Utilize that 20 personnel sometimes they put out there.
Oscar Dragicevic, who's from Texas, trying to get some footing. And Aaron Fuller, another Texas guy, back to return it. That's a good punt. Fuller backing with a fair catch at the 11. Winner of this one wins the North, moves to the Pac-12 championship game next Friday night right here on Fox against Utah. For Washington, it'd be their second trip over the last 3 seasons, trying to salvage a season that began with playoff aspirations and a number 6 ranking. Washington State, they've never gone to the Pac-12 championship game. While they've shared titles in previous decades, the last outright conference championship for Washington State was 1930. From the 11-yard line, 1st and 10 for Washington. Here comes Gaskin. Bouncing outside, trying to run around Strong. Angled out of bounds close to the stick. Solid 1st down gain for Gaskin.
They motioned in Fuller, the wide receiver, to help essentially set an edge and give Gaskin the opportunity to bounce to the outside if he could, because they were betting on Marcus Strong not coming up as that forced player in that case. That's what allowed them to now put themselves within 2nd and 1.
He's got 84 yards tonight. He's within 10 yards of becoming the first Pac-12 player ever with 4 1,000-yard seasons. He's got 3 tight ends in the game to help. Stopped at the line of scrimmage, 3rd and short, as Will Rogers brought him down.
Now, early on in this game, when the conditions weren't like this, really the field conditions, Washington was having their way with a smaller, quicker front for Washington State. But now, as footing's become an issue, you're now seeing this Washington State defensive front penetrate more and getting in the backfield, be more active.
On 3rd and 1, Gaskin behind Jacob Kaiser explodes. There goes Myles Gaskin. Will they track him down inside the 10? He's in. Touchdown on an explosion from Myles Gaskin. An 80-yard touchdown, his 3rd of the game.
Let's take another look how this play was so effective. It's called a counter play. So you're going to see Kaiser wrap back around, and you get all the defenders to move this way, and it helps create a seam for Gaskin out the backside. Marcus Strong probably had the best chance of making a play, but he had outside contain. So really now it's a foot race, and he's just doing the best he can to catch up with Gaskin.
And what a way to move into the record books. Over 1,000 for the 4th year in a row. Well over 1,000 with that 80-yard run. And now Washington sends the offense out there to go for 2, trying to make this a 13-point game.
Given how the last PAT worked out, I don't know how much confidence you have, again, in your special teams and in the kicking game.
Though the other side of this is, if you don't get it, touchdown and a 2-point conversion and a field goal would then tie. It's a moot point now, as Ahmed runs downhill with flags down. There's some late substitutions from Washington State.
Defense offside number 34. Penalty decline. Result of the play is a 2-point conversion.
So it's a 13-point game. Myles Gaskin rips off an 80-yarder, getting a block from the seldom used Jacob Kaiser, and a 2-touchdown lead for the Huskies. Fox College Football is sponsored by Ford, built Ford proud, and by Ice Cold Dr. Pepper, the official drink of Fansville. Take a look at our hardest working players, sponsored by Duluth Trading Company. Tough, ingenious workwear designed and tested by tradesmen. Myles Gaskin, another big game in the Apple Cup. Another 1,000-yard season. The guy that, as a baby, his parents say, even as a baby, he looked athletic. Walked when he was 7 months old. Ran before he was 1. And played everything growing up. He was a star basketball player, dunked as an 8th grader, even though he's only 5'10" now. Track and field, state finalist in the 100-meter, and the shot put. He's a pretty well-rounded athlete.
Yeah, look, and he's got a future on Sundays. You look at his productivity, it's a lot of carries, but he can do a lot of different things. He's effective in the run game, but he can catch the football, too, out of the backfield.
High kick angled away from Travell Harris. That's Keith Harrington getting his hands on it. You can tell that traction is hard to come by at this point. Time for a game break with Greg Wolf.
Joe, thanks. 2 of the most potent offenses in college football, but Oklahoma's defense starting to steal the show. Will Greer spun around, hit hard by Kenneth Mann. Curtis Bolton is going to scoop it up and go 52 yards the other way for the touchdown. Second defensive touchdown by the Sooners tonight. Oklahoma leads 59-49 4th quarter. Joe, Brady, back to you.
Looking at maybe a Red River Big 12 championship.
How about that defense? After making a change at coordinator, Ruffman McNeil now taking over. It's a lot of points, but at least they're making some plays.
12:24 left to go in this one. Gardner Minshew and the Cougs trying to get things going offensively. Max Borghi out of the backfield gets 6. What's Washington State have to do to have a shot?
Well, they've got to find a way of getting some yards after contact, yards after a catch, because they're not going to change what they do. They're still going to sling the football around, but the problem is they really haven't been able to develop a big play. 22 yards is the biggest play they've had so far this game, and it's been Max Borghi out of the backfield, and he had to elude a couple of defenders in order to make that happen.
2nd and 4. Underneath, Jackson can't get it. 3rd down.
Again, the wins against them. I think one thing that Washington's done a decent job of is starting to collapse the pocket around Gardner Minshew. That last throw, it didn't look like he could fully extend because of the push that the Washington defensive front is giving, even though it's only a 3-man rush.
Look at that, 400 yards per game for Washington State through the air on the season to lead college football. 142 tonight. Credit to this Washington defense, which will bring 4 on 3rd down. Jackson this time has it on the slant to keep the drive alive to the 34.
For some of these players, even a guy like Calvin Jackson, who's from Pompano Beach, Florida, you don't know how many times they've ever played in snow, seen snow, understand how to adapt and deal with that, the footing aspect of it, just catching the football.
You're looking at the skill guys. Every single one of them besides Max Borg is from a warm weather climate. Here's Williams. Spins his way free. Breaks a tackle for a first down near midfield. Stopped by Elijah Molden.
Well, look at the collision after this spin move. Burr-Kirven and Ryan Bowman are going to collide after James Williams hits the R4.
Oof.
I don't even know that's the right button.
R2, no,
R2,
I think you use
something?
circle for that.
Okay.
R2's juke right. I don't know, I'm old at this point, I used to know. Taking a look at Burr-Kirven.
This is scary too because he tried to get up and he actually fell back down to his feet. Let's take another look. So here's Burr-Kirven. And watch as James Williams kind of spins and returns the opposite way. It's Bowman and Burr-Kirven go head on head.
Yikes. And Ben Burr-Kirven did just stand up under his own power and walks off. That was great to see. Scary collision there.
You mentioned, though, DJ Beaver's back. Fortunate to have him back, but they've got some depth there. Brendan Wellington's had a good game so far. Now Kyler Manu will replace Ben Burr-Kirven.
With 11-10 and counting. The ball at the 46. Back to the ground. Williams shut down this time by Keith Taylor.
And Keith Taylor playing a spot that he's not necessarily accustomed to. Miles Bryant has been out for a good portion now of this game. And they've had to adjust a little bit with their secondary. And they're playing with a 6 defensive back package. And it's good to see that Ben Burr-Kirven's back out there on the field.
Second down and 9. Washington State trying to keep its college football playoff aspirations alive, trying to do it in come from behind fashion. Minshew in trouble and sacked by Tryon. Joe Tryon gets to him and makes it 3rd and long.
And Joe Tryon's first sack of his career did a good job of getting fast high up around the edge in order to get to Minshew. This is really what the Washington defensive staff has been waiting on all year long. Seen flashes of it in practice. As the years gone on, he's continued to develop. He's really earned that spot to being on these passing situations.
First sack tonight for Washington. They've had Minshew moving off his spot throughout the night. And 3rd and long, he's got time to throw. Has to check it down to Williams, who stumbles. And it'll be 4th and 10.
And this is where you got to think about going for it on 4th down.
Right at that time where it's kind of a toss-up, right?
It's tough because, one, you worry about kicking it to Washington, and they can just continue to keep running the ball, running the clock out, potentially give up a big play like we saw that last drive, and it looks like that's what Mike Leach is going to elect to do. Now it puts that pressure on the Washington State defense. And you couldn't imagine trying to run a fake in these conditions, especially considering it's 4th and 10.
I don't think they're going to get it off. It's going to be a delay.
Penalty. Remains 4th down.
And again, you're kicking into the wind. So it's not a scenario where you want to take a delay because you'd rather give your punter the opportunity to really have a full swing at it.
Now that one's on Mike Leach. He didn't decide to punt until there were 15 seconds on the play clock.
I think he's probably looking at saying, we're going to need those timeouts. I don't want to burn one. I'll sacrifice 5 yards now.
Yeah.
And in hopes that our defense can get a stop and save one of those timeouts for a drive when we're really going to need it.
Clock inside 9 minutes now. Dragicevic has had a good day. Catches it cleanly, which is no small thing in these conditions, and sends another good one to Fuller. The sure-handed fair catch at the 17. But a memorable Apple Cup in the snow here in Pullman with a trip to the Pac-12 championship game up for grabs. Coming up tomorrow, number 4 Michigan, number 10 Ohio State. Right here on Fox with coverage starting at 11 a.m. Eastern.
The biggest question, can that Ohio State defense stop the rushing attack of Michigan? Ron Higdon's been phenomenal this season. We've seen the Buckeyes give up a lot of big plays on the ground. Same question probably here for Washington State's defense as well after that last drive and what we've seen tonight.
Miles Gaskin got stopped by Peyton Pelluer. No gain, second down. 3 turnovers both sides. Boy, could Washington State use a 4th. The 8.5 and counting.
I wouldn't be surprised if Washington doesn't come back to that same play that they utilized for the Gaskin touchdown, that counter play. Got this sort of fast defense for Washington State. A little bit of misdirection, especially with as bad as the footing is. Catch the Washington State defense over pursuing.
They put Ahmed in, and if he gets that same kind of hole, good night. He got better speed than Gaskin does. It is Ahmed with a hole off the left side, using that speed to turn the corner for a first down. Got around Marcus Strong.
Well, the design was actually to go to the right. It's just a single back power play. You're going to see Wattenberg pull, but it's really the vision of Ahmed to come out the backside. A good job by Trey Adams, who's been filling in for the injured Jared Hilbers. Look at the ball on the right arm. We talked about that coming into it. Ahmed has a tendency to not change the ball to his outside arm. Typically, you're worried about that because the defense can again come strip it from you, and you don't have that arm to use as a stiff arm. It's not all the time, but he's got a tendency to do it more so. It's something he's got to work on over his career.
You worry, especially on a night like this. The snow keeps thickening. It's like snowballs falling right now. Ahmed, again left side. With 6 more yards. Came into the game saying you figured Washington would try to do what it's done in recent years, and that is pound away on Washington State. It was 7 minutes and counting. Trying to pound this clock all the way down to get to the Pac-12 championship game.
We've got the size advantage, but I think it's more just the personnel. When you've got tight ends like Washington does, and now that they've got Hunter Bryant into the mix, who does a good enough job run blocking, but also is a big-time threat in the pass game, it affords you so many things in your playbook that you can do and that the defense has to deal with.
Second and 4. Washington State badly needs a stop. Ahmed's got a first down. Peyton Pelluer over the tackle. Mike Leach's team tonight wearing those throwback uniforms back to 1992, which looked like this here in Pullman. It was a snowstorm, but the outcome was different than it looks like this one is trending towards. Drew Bledsoe led the Cougs to a win over a top 10 Washington team, a defending champion Washington team. 6:10 to go. Washington State looking at a similar fate to the last 2 years, and that is an opportunity to beat Washington, go to the championship, but a loss. Gaskin just back to the line of scrimmage.
You mentioned Drew Bledsoe. Think about some of the quarterbacks that have played in this matchup. In particular for Washington State, you got Bledsoe, got our buddy Ryan Leaf. Some big-time players. Jason Gessler was a Pac-10 at that point in time. Player of the year. And all the hype was around Gardner Minshew, trying to give the Cougars hope. This one being a different outcome than what they've faced in past years.
And that play clock all the way down again in front of 2nd down and 9. Run the ball 6 consecutive plays, make it 7. Gaskin tackled by Pelluer. It's 3rd down, and Washington State's got to have it now. Got to have that stop now. So the clock winds near 5 minutes.
I think if I'm Washington, I continue to run the football here. No reason to take a risk. Keep forcing Washington State to use those timeouts.
First one used right here. Winner of this one on to the Pac-12 championship game next Friday on Fox against Utah, with coverage beginning at 7 Eastern. Watch it anywhere on the Fox Sports app. Washington trying to put the finishing touches on it. They lead by 2 scores with 5:05 left, but looking at a 3rd and 7. Keep it on the ground with a 10th consecutive run. Ahmed trying to get the edge and does with a back-breaking first down. On 3rd and 7, Salvon Ahmed runs for 14.
And what a job he did by pressing the line of scrimmage. And that forces right here, number 34, Jalen Thompson. He sucks up on the run, and Ahmed then says, I've got more speed than you, and I can get to the edge, to the outside, and a first down. Once again, though, that ball in the right arm, and you can see Marcus Strong knows he's going for it. That's where you want to put it in your left arm, so you've got that right arm as a stiff arm to separate between the defender and the football.
4.5, just 2 timeouts for Washington State. All that stunting up front, all that pre-snap movement. Ahmed able to dance his way free. He's carrying a heavy load on this drive. Come out here, Myles Gaskin goes back in. 1 year after Washington ran for 328. They've got over 330 today. Marcus Strong, the injured player, make that 230 today. Marcus Strong extended 2.
Marcus Strong, who had just a ridiculous interception last week, about as good as it gets. He turned back after covering the wide receiver, find the football, one-handed up to snatch it. Also recovered a forced fumble by Jahad Woods. Type of guy who's a little bit undersized but plays bigger than he is.
You can put that down for just about every player on Washington State's defense, can't you?
That is probably true. Let's take a look at the end of the play. See Marcus Strong coming from the right. Smashes into Willie Taylor. Looks like Drew Sample, the tight end for Washington, gave him a shove. It's a couple times now we've seen players from the same team and dealing with some friendly fire. That last play, Hunter Bryant was blocking Skylar Thomas. They went all the way back to midfield. They're almost 20 yards behind the play. It's hard to see him in the snow, though.
I'll just take your word for it. Well, Hunter Bryant, only a few catches tonight, but they've gone for big yards. And if they are going to move ahead to the Pac-12 championship and they hope from there the Rose Bowl, he makes them a different offense.
He's your worst nightmare if you're a defensive coordinator, because of his versatility and really how Bush Hamdan uses him. I mean, they'll put him in the backfield, they put him in line or on the backside of plays, they'll split him out because he's got the ability to run routes like a wide receiver. And so pick your poison. How do you want to try to cover him? And you got to kind of look for where to find him.
3 catches tonight, but for 108 yards. Gaskin hit in the backfield, gets back to the line of scrimmage. He's stopped by Willie Taylor. And another chance at a 3rd down stop here for the Cougs, but just 3:20 left.
Yeah, and if I'm Washington here, I'm not even trying to attempt at a field goal. I'm going to continue to keep trying to run the football, eat time off the clock, force Washington State to use the remaining 2 timeouts. But there's no reason to even risk it, putting your special teams on the field.
This will be the 10th play of this drive for the Huskies. Dating back a couple of drives, a 14th consecutive run. Myles Gaskin is close. We'll see where they spot him. Got a face full of snow there. He's got enough for a first down.
If you're Mike Leach now, you've got to start thinking about using those timeouts. Things seem bleak, but you never know. Could be a mishandled snap in these conditions. Play every down, utilize every opportunity you have. These timeouts don't carry over.
Look at the spot, it sounds like.
Keep in mind, too, Mike Leach early on in this game already used his challenge and lost a timeout in the first half for challenging a spot. And that would be no longer an opportunity, or hasn't at least been since that point.
As it looks right now, though, what a frustrating thing for Washington State. Now, this was supposed to be the year that it would be different, but staring down a 6th consecutive defeat to Washington, barring a miracle here down the stretch. There's a chance that this could get overturned, move back a touch.
What yard mark you got there?
I don't know. It's all one big white blob. Dean Blandino is watching this one back in Los Angeles. Dean, what do you see?
Yeah, it's tough with all that snow, but it looks like the line of game is the 27. The right knee is down, and the ball is short of the 27-yard line. Looks like they're going to overturn this and make it 4th down.
After review, it was determined the runner was down at the 27.5-yard line, short of the line to gain. It will be 4th down at that spot.
Didn't Dean look warm back there in studio?
Comfortable.
Very comfortable.
We should do a side-by-side of him and Bruce Feldman.
Yeah.
So 4th down. Offense will stay out there.
Saw a quarterback sneak earlier in the game. I'm sure it's something that we'll probably see here. It's something that Washington likes to utilize with Jake Browning on short yardage situations. Toughest thing is Washington State runs in these scenarios a bear front. What that means is they cover up the center and both guards. So it forces you as a quarterback to figure out which gap you want to hit. Sometimes you actually got to hit it a little bit wider if it is a quarterback sneak.
Boy, they moved this thing back quite a bit, though.
Yeah.
It's 4th down and a good yard.
Too far to actually do it now, looking at it.
They do try the sneak.
Cade Otton in there pushing Jake Browning as far as he could. Every little bit helps. This is going to be close, though. Check out number 87. This is legal now. You can go ahead and push the ball carrier. Can't pull him. See how he's kind of tilting to the right side as Drew Sample's helping out as well.
I mean, you're right. It is going to be close, but I think this one may be reviewed as well.
Yeah.
Jake wants a better look. We'll go right down the line.
What about that offensive line, though, for Washington? You know, the offensive line we talked a lot about was Washington State coming into the game because of how good they have been protecting Gardner Minshew. A couple sacks, though, tonight for the Washington defense, and it's really been the Husky offensive line that's paved the way.
Got to get the ice off the chains. It is frozen. 1st down. And should just about do it for Washington. And Jake Browning, who's on the cusp of going to 4-0 in Apple Cups in his career. And what a weird ride it's been for him the last few weeks. Getting benched in that game at Cal in the 3rd quarter. Bouncing back from that with a couple of good performances, Stanford and Oregon State, and a lot of criticism throughout his career. But the bottom line, you know, Brady, quarterbacks are judged on wins and losses. No quarterback in Pac-12 history has won more games than Jake Browning.
And I think, too, you got to look at who he had his sophomore year. Everyone wanted to hold him to that standard where he threw for, 43 touchdown passes. You know, John Ross and Dante Pettis are playing on Sundays now. It's hard to replace those guys.
Ahmed, right side. Inside the 10, 1st and goal.
But you know, it's hard to replace those guys. It's hard to replicate what they had going on at that point in time. And Jonathan Smith, their offensive coordinator, he's gone. He's the head coach at Oregon State. Bush Hammond's taken over. So there's been a lot of transition, too, for Jake Browning. And I think he's handled it flawlessly. Seems like no matter what happens, kind of takes it with a grain of salt. Focuses on his job, his task of being a leader.
And you talk about the perfect marriage at the perfect time. Jake Browning and Chris Peterson coming to Seattle at the same time. It's kind of like he's like mini Chris Peterson in the way that he carries himself. There's Ahmed inside the 5.
It reminds me of Kellen Moore, who's now a quarterback coach of the Dallas Cowboys, but was formerly Chris Peterson's quarterback at Boise State, and one that was extremely successful there. Very similar in their demeanor, the type of player they are. And it's almost like he found his other Kellen Moore.
Said at the senior day team meeting before senior day last weekend, he was going around the room honoring each of the seniors. Chris Peterson was, and then when he locked eyes with Jake Browning and it was time to honor him, he had to end the speech. He couldn't keep it together at that point. He's meant so much to him.
The chances now for Washington State and even the Pac-12 of having a playoff team obviously go down with Washington State's chance for their seniors to get a win versus the Huskies.
The story becomes Chris Peterson and Washington winning another Apple Cup, the 6th in a row, the 9th of the last 10, and in a year where they were ranked 6th to start this season and had college football playoff aspirations, legitimate ones. Disappointing middle part of the season, but they've salvaged things and will head to the Pac-12 championship game for the 2nd time in 3 years, and an opportunity at a trip to the Rose Bowl for the first time since 2000. Plenty more from Pullman, Washington when we come back. Huskies never trail in this one, and they win the Apple Cup 28-15. Presented the Apple Cup trophy. 6th consecutive win in this rivalry, 9th one out of the last 10. Chris Peterson unbeaten against his in-state rival. A big part of the reason is his running back tonight, Myles Gaskin, and he's our 4th unstoppable player. He does it again against Washington State.
And right from the beginning of the game, all game long, regardless of the conditions, and when ball security became critical, he not only did a tremendous job of taking care of it, but really maximizing his opportunities and doing really what we've seen from the past 4 years from him. The first Pac-12 rusher now over 1,000 yards in each one of his seasons, and capitalizing with another win versus Washington State in the Apple Cup.
170 yards, 3 touchdowns. That means 10 touchdowns in Gaskin's career in the Apple Cup. We welcome you back inside, Joe Davis and Brady Quinn. And boy, this is a memorable night tonight. I know Washington State fans are rolling their eyes and saying no, but with the conditions, everything at stake, ultimately different year, same story.
Yeah, you wonder too, without these conditions, how this game could have been different potentially for Washington State, given their air raid style of offense and their style of play. And I think you got to credit Washington. It wasn't just their offense, how productive they were running the football, their defense, the game plan, being able to generate some pressure, generate turnovers from Gardner Minshew, something that we really haven't seen from him this season. You could obviously chalk this up as his poorest performance of the year. Nonetheless, though, an incredible one. What a story. I mean, a guy from Brandon, Mississippi, make his way from Troy all the way now to here to finish out his career at Washington State.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew, even though he's new to this rivalry, you can tell how much it means to him. Very emotional. Following the clock running out.
He's a competitor, and I think you saw this team really gravitate towards him, and he knows this is really his last opportunity to give them a shot at playing in the college football playoff. And again, just going back to where he started from, a guy who didn't have any offers, starting off at Troy, going to community college, going to ECU where he really wasn't wanted there, and now he found himself as a legitimate Heisman contender. Pretty special.
On the other side, Chris Peterson, another win in the Apple Cup moments ago, visited with Bruce.
All right, Coach, 5-0 since you've been in the Apple Cup. How are you able to dominate this team the way you guys have?
I don't know. It's just, this is a weird game today with these elements. I don't think we were thinking it was going to turn into a snow fest till right before the game. And, you know, our kids just kind of found a way. You know, it's kind of bad on both teams. I know they didn't like it like that. We really didn't like it like this either. They just grinded it out, though.
Your quarterback, you benched him a couple of weeks ago, and now Jake Browning, only quarterback in this rivalry's history to go 4-0. Tell me about his legacy now.
He's awesome. I mean, the winningest quarterback, you know. I mean, what do you say? And, you know, I got so much respect for that kid, and he's got a heart of a lion and a champion, and just I'm glad we got him on our side.
Myles Gaskin, not the biggest guy in the world, the only running back in Pac-12 history, 4 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Not a big guy, ran all over these guys. What impresses you most about him?
Yeah, I said it forever. Myles is, you know, A lot of people know about him, but I still think he's so underrated. He's so strong. He's got tremendous vision. He's always going to find a hole if it's there. He took the game over here.
Now you guys move on. You got Utah in the Pac-12 title game. What concerns you most about that matchup?
Well, I'll think about that in about 3 hours. They got a good squad, and we were lucky to go over there early in the season, but much different teams now this late in the season.
All right, thanks, Coach. Congrats. Guys.
All right, Bruce, and he can wait a few hours to think about the Pac-12 championship game. We don't have to. We're going to preview it when we come back. Well, it wasn't in blowout fashion like it has been in recent years, but at the end of the day, the result was the same. Washington beats Washington State and moves on to the Pac-12 championship game. We look at the road ahead, sponsored by Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. It's a conference championship game, first timer in Utah. Taking on Washington. These teams met up in the Pac-12 opener, a 21-7 Washington win in Salt Lake, and that's going to be a different Utah team, different quarterback, different running back, same defense, which typically defines Kyle Whittingham's teams. One of the best in the Pac-12 again.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a defensive battle. You saw the stats. They're also each the top 2 rush defense in the Pac-12. And obviously both teams want to run the football, too. We saw that. So it's going to be a battle of possessions, a battle of who takes care of the football, and really which one can capitalize in the passing game when the opportunities are there. And given the inexperience of that quarterback, a freshman quarterback for Utah, and Jason Shelley now taking over for Tyrell Huntley, who's hurt, you'd have to give the advantage to Washington.
You want to go?
Yeah, I think it'd be fun.
We should go dig Bruce out from the pile of snow he's under and bring him too.
He might have to thaw out for a little bit first, though.
He's got a week. Michigan-Ohio State is tomorrow. It's another big rivalry game. 115th meeting between these programs. Wolverines and Buckeyes. We got to hustle home so we can watch that.
Well, I hope we can just get home with this weather right now.
That's true, too. 11 a.m. Eastern coverage begins right here on Fox. Kickoff not too long after that. 28-15 final score in the 111th Apple Cup. Washington over Washington State. The North goes to Washington again. They take on Utah and Santa Clara on Friday night. Again, you can watch that on Fox. Coverage starting at 7 Eastern. Thanks for joining us from Pullman. Have a great rest of your Thanksgiving weekend, and we'll talk to you from the Pac-12 Championship next week.